Unmuted. call. Roll call, please.
Miranda.
Here.
Maniscalco. Hurtak.
Here.
Young. Vieira. Carlson. Clendenin. We have a quorum.
Thank you so much. So we are moving on to the 1:30 public hearings. So staff for public hearing, item number 49.
Move to open the 1:30
Oh,
public hearing.
thank you. I have a motion to open the 1:30 public hearings by Councilmember Maniscalco. I have a second from Councilmember Miranda. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Oh, yes, oath of, sorry. Let's go ahead and do oaths. If you are here to speak on item 49 at all, please stand and raise your right hand, even if you think you may not, but you're here for that item. Please stand, raise your right hand. Thank you.
Do you swear affirm that the testimony you about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth? Yes, thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Petitioner from the legal department. I'm here on item number 49, which is a review hearing for the application of DE 125-160 for the property located at 4001 East Hillsboro Avenue. This is a de novo hearing that's before you. You guys, City Council should have your packets that contain the rules of procedure in order to conduct this review hearing. It should also contain code section 27-61, which is the review hearing process that governs this matter. Also, I provided a sample motion regarding this item. But as I previously stated in code section 27-61, this is a de novo review hearing, which means City Council can accept new evidence regarding this matter. After hearing from staff and from the petitioner regarding this matter, City Council can either affirm the decision of the zoning administrator or overturn the decision of the zoning administrator, and the sample motions give you some guidance. I also included in the sample motion the criteria in 27-60 subsection E5 that shall be used in order to determine whether or not to affirm or deny the application, the requests by the petitioners. I am here if you have any questions, but with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Cotton, who will be here who will present why this application was denied.
Thank you very much. Before we go any further, I'm sorry, I forgot to do number 2 in this, in the procedures.
And just number 2 is to ask if anybody has any verbal ex parte communications that they need to disclose at this time. Otherwise, we can make a motion to move to receive and file the written requests. If there's a motion.
Do I have a motion? And you are?
Oh, I'm sorry, I am. Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney.
I have a motion from Councilmember Vieira, who has joined us. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Councilman Miranda to receive all written materials, if any. So all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Thank you very much. Now we are ready for Mr. Cotton. Apologies.
Good afternoon, Council. Eric Cotton, Development Coordination. This is an appeal of design exception 125-160 for a property at 4001 East Hillsboro Avenue. Petitioner and the property owner the same as New Plaza LLC. The agent was Civil Design and Engineering, Alejandro Bosch. The property is owned CI, commercial intensive. So the proposal was to construct a brand new shopping center or a retail strip plaza on the property. And they were asking if they came in for the design exception process, which is an administrative review by city staff. And they asked for 3 things. 1, to allow the front setback to be a maximum of 138 feet. The principal facade not to face a public street, and to allow parking in the front yard. And when I show the site plan, it'll probably make it'll make it more clear for y'all. Again, this is the property, of course, this is on 40th. This is Hillsboro, it's at the southeast intersection. So this is just the code requirements for the design exception. I believe that's probably in the packet that y'all received from. But these are the code sections. So these are all part of the East Tampa Overlay District, which, if y'all recall, was originally adopted 2000-2001, and has been amended periodically. The last time, about 2 years ago, before the publicly initiated text amendments were removed, the neighborhood or East Tampa came in and asked for these waivers, some changes. So we did a front yard setback now is a build-to zone, so it's between 10 and 12 feet for residential, or for commercial uses. The building facade and the entryways all have to face a public street, and the parking should be located in the rear or side yard. So this is the site plan as presented as part of the design exception. You see, this is the proposed building. Parking is in the front, entrance off of Hillsboro and entrance off of North 40th. Staff's position is that, I'm not an engineer, I'm not an architect, but staff's position is the property could be flipped to a degree, and I apologize for the lack of professionalism on my drawing here. But the staff's position is the building could be flipped and a different design could be utilized to bring the building up close, which is the intent of the overlay district, to make it more pedestrian friendly. They would be able to meet the 10 to 12 foot setback. They would be able to put the parking towards the rear, and they would have, the front doors would be definitely facing the street, not have a parking lot in between. That's the end of my presentation. Does council have any questions for me?
Councilmember Maniscalco.
Yes, sir.
So this right now is an empty parking lot with a check cashing site on, is that the site?
The check cashing site is
It's on
at
the
the
corner.
corner. It's not part of their site. It's
But
actually carved out.
But historically, was there a grocery store there, or what was there? I mean, that's a big lot. It looks like, I don't know. That's what.
I don't recall what was there. I'm sure the applicant can tell you what was there historically. I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, or maybe a car dealership. I mean, it's big, so I don't know.
It's a large site. It's almost 20,000 square feet.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Okay, petitioner. I'm sorry. Okay, so, yes, presentation by the petitioner.
Hello, my name is Fadi Mubarak. I'm the owner of the property over on Hillsboro on 40th. Bought the property about 10 years ago, free and clear. Had a grocery store where I end up losing that building. I was the landlord of the property only, doesn't own the grocery store. Got burned 5 years ago. The tenant was there. I had insurance, full coverage insurance. He did not cooperate with me about fixing some of the electric. I was out of the country. I end up losing the insurance that time. So he made me lose the insurance. 3 weeks after, one month after, the whole building got on fire. So I had to come back, and the city, after a while, so I end up losing everything. So I did not get a dollar from the insurance. I came back, and then with the burn, the city asked me, please, we need you to demolish it because it doesn't look good and there, whatever. When I bought the property, I had a dream. I'm an owner with a lot of shopping center. I own a lot in Temple Terrace around Florida. And I had a dream for this property. Even when the lease was gonna go up with the grocery store, I was gonna demolish it and rebuild it again. But I ended up losing. I fight the case. It cost me almost $700,000 or $800,000 attorney fees trying to get my building back. Like why the building got burned. He made me lose the insurance. I end up came up with zero. So I beside the building, I lost everything. I did not get a dollar, but I ended up paying $700,000 for the attorney fees, which I have a proof of that. Make the long story short, I wanted to build that plaza. I had a dream. The way I own the Ace Cash and Check place on that corner, but they do have a lease up till, I think, 2031, Ace Cash and Check place. So when I came back and I said, I will do an L-shaped plaza. We're facing that way, close to that road on 40th. And if you guys want me to get it close as possible to Hillsboro, just to make it stands out, I was ready to build it. I didn't have to go to the bank. I'm ready to rebuild it. And I want to make this corner, honestly, like I'm a real estate guy. Beside all the 300 retail locations I own around the country, I know the retail's very good experience with the retail. I wanted to make this corner stands out. To make the long story short, I'm ready to do the project. I truly wanted to do it. Facing the sidewalk, especially in that corner like that, I'll be honest with you, I can only talk about my experience. It will give me the 60% chance or maybe 55% for me to fail for me to grab the right tenants in there. Now, I do have the right tenants. I own a lot of shopping centers on Fowler to major tenants like Foot Locker, Champs, Jimmy John's, all that stuff. I was gonna create that corner and get the best retail locations as possible out of these tenants and get this corner to stand out over in Hillsboro. I mean, I have the experience, and I was hoping to get it approved if we can, because I'm ready to do the project. And I think this is gonna stand, for the past 3 years, has nothing but issues. All I had to do just hire one person from my office just to keep visiting the vacant sites I own around the city, because we had nothing but issues, and we had to call the police so many times trying to kick this person out from selling this, or this guy's parking his 18-wheelers or whatever. So, yeah, that's, so I hope if we can make this happen, I was ready to get the project going.
Councilmember Maniscalco, oh, I'm sorry, do you have anything else?
Yeah, pretty much that's it, so,
Okay, Councilman Maniscalco.
On the building that was there that burned down.
Yes.
How did it face? Was it set back on the property facing Hillsboro or facing?
no, it was sitting in the back, so all the parking was in the front. So it was,
Facing Hillsboro was where the parking was.
yeah, facing Hillsboro, the parking, that's where the parking was.
Okay.
I think it was a Winn-Dixie back then, and then I don't know what happened, but when I purchased it, it was more like a local supermarket where I was just leasing it out, and then it happened what happened with that building. I ended up losing it. Honestly, besides, I bought the property free and clear, but I did not get $1 out of it. And since then, I'm holding up to the property because this is one of the famous properties I wanted to own for a long time, honestly. So it happened what it happened, and the building got burned, and I just want to reface it and put a brand new building, kind of sits high, and honestly, so I'm not going to go the cheap way to trying to build that building. Trust me, it's going to be something really nice where it's going to stand out.
Anyone else with questions? So I have a question.
Yes.
Like, what is your actual reason for not being able to meet these requirements? There's a code that says you have to meet these requirements. Why? You haven't given us any reason why you can't.
Yeah.
Just that you
so-
don't want to.
So honestly, two reasons. The Ace being sitting on that corner like that, I figured out when I do it that way, that will be the right retail, because Ace didn't want to give up that locations whatsoever. They came back and said, this is one of our best location. Second, based on me owning over 300 locations around the country, that all the stores I picked up from other landlords where I created my sales out of it. It was one of the lowest and the lowest production doors, because it's always the customer they always wanted to kind of face, especially it depends also on the neighborhood. So each area, it will be a little bit different. I always felt like every 10 minutes that if I did that building that way, I'm going to have a huge risk about leasing the spaces compared to having it the other way, which I have the right tenants to move forward today. This is 100% based
Okay,
on my
but-
experience.
But that's not an actual reason that we can use. Finances aren't a reason that we can use to.
No, I'm not talking about, well, as an investor, for me to be excited to make my move, that's the only way I can guarantee the tenants to come and sign up leases compared to other where I kind of saw it in other cities. It was never, to me, it was never successful when it came to retail.
But
And I can give an example, like,
okay, but again, finances have nothing to do with this. We cannot consider finances.
Sure.
We can only consider, reasonable. I mean, we can only consider what the design exception or what the East Tampa overlay is. I'll let Councilwoman Young. Do you want to?
I mean, I guess I want to hear what exactly is it that Mr. Cotton had put the photo up where you're just taking the building and putting it on the other side. Why can't we do that? What is there? Because to fit in with the overlay, so the East Tampa overlay is there is for a reason. So I'm trying to understand, why can't you just apply or comply with what the overlay district has and do it this way? Let's put the parking in the back, because by switching the building, one, this is what East Tampa community wants. They want corridors that are, pedestrian friendly. They want to be able to walk up into the spaces. So I'm just trying to figure out what is it that you just can't do what is here?
Also, Ace Cash and Check Place, when we spoke to them, and I told them that, I have a plan, I want to redevelop my property, because they took in a very small portion, but they also have a lease. They came back and his attorney came back and said that for you to have also something close to my building like that, I have the right to come back and sue you if I felt like I'm gonna lose business and stuff like that. So having it also close to that could create a huge issue with me with Ace. Compare me sending it down way far away from them where I can start my project right away.
Do you have anything? Mr. Cotton, I have a question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
What are the required setbacks between them and the property on the corner?
Since it's not the same zoning lot, since this is its own, as far as I know, this is its own parcel ID.
Yes.
There's a building separation that would be governed by the fire code, which is probably, I know for residential it's 5 feet, I don't know what it is for commercial, 5 to 10 feet probably, between.
And that's completely legal, just using the setbacks that are required by code.
Correct, because the setbacks that are required by code are from the property lines of the property that it's on.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, is there anyone in the public that wishes to speak to this item? Are you a part of the team?
Yes, I'm
Then that is not public comment,
Oh, okay.
but you have plenty of time left. If you would like to speak, you can speak, but it's part of that 15 minutes. So you're welcome, sir, you're welcome to speak,
Okay.
but it's just not public comment. It's
Okay.
part of the presentation.
Yeah, sorry, my bad.
And please start with your name.
Yes,
And I'm
good.
sorry, how much time did they have left? Okay, there's 5 minutes and 35 seconds.
Okay.
Please start with your name.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alejandro Bosch. I'm the civil engineer helping Patty on this project. We started the design. Initially, we came up with this alternative. We discussed with the city the hurdles that we were going to have not complying with the code. And there are reasons, technical reasons, why we didn't want to just shift the building on the other side. One of them was on the south side, there is an easement, currently an easement, and we will need to have 2 points of access as required by the fire code. We will need to go over an easement, so that could be a problem. On the other side, we're gonna be encroaching into the neighbors. If we shift the driveway towards the east side, we will be encroaching towards the neighbor property line, and there's a certain distance, since you are on East Hillsboro Avenue, there's a certain distance that we need to comply with the driveways. This could create a problem in terms of internal traffic circulation for vehicles, and garbage trucks to pick up the trash and so on and so forth. And quite frankly, generally speaking, all the retails I've seen, basically they have the parking in the front and the building in the rear, most of them. I understand the Fadi's concern from the financial standpoint, and I know this is not a point of discussion here, but I think, overall it should be taken into consideration. It's a combination. Currently, right now, the city of Tampa is not collecting too much tax money on this property, and if we bring this development in, it will bring a good chunk of tax to the city as well. So, other things that could be problematic with this layout marked in blue, it would be the minimum distance between the existing building and proposed building, the reduction of parking, because with this configuration, it will be the amount of parking that we can fit is going to be pretty much less. So those are the technical things that to consider and why we did the layout the way it was done. Yes, that's pretty much. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay. Is there anyone actually in the public that wishes to speak on this item?
Good afternoon, Stephanie Pointer. This sounds like a whole lot of, I want to do what I want to do, and I don't give a crap what your rules are. That's what it sounds like to me. This gentleman has just sat here and said he's got code enforcement issues all over town, having to run people off of his other vacant lots. And so he wants to set this up the way he wants to set it up, and he really doesn't give a crap what the people in the community wanted. I mean, I didn't say it, he said it. So, you know, I think that if the folks from East Tampa were actually here, they would say, we set up the overlay for a reason, and we asked for this for a reason, and this guy just wants to do what he wants to do. Thank you very much.
Staff, is there anything additional that you would like to say?
No, ma'am, I'm here for questions if there's any
Can you
questions.
push that up just, okay, thank you.
Is that
Okay,
good?
nope, you're good. You can take that.
Okay.
Okay, is there anything else from the applicant or petitioner? You have 5 minutes if you'd like to respond.
Just along-
Please start again with your name.
My name is Fadi Mubarak, the owner of that property at 4001 East Hillsboro Avenue. Also having that property shaped in that way, and like I said, one more thing about the ACE. I know it's not financial, but the ACE, for me to start my project, they have up to 31 day lease, and I can approve that. For me to do it the way you guys wanted it, there is no way I can move with it. I mean, you see the building, you see how they sit, and they made sure. So I have a letter from them, from their attorney, when we tried to do the project like 2 years ago, before we knew all that's gonna happen. They pretty much concerned with Siraj. He's the person handle a lot of that stuff for me. He's the one was dealing with them. They made sure, they said, that if we find out any interruption or if you lock us up or whatever, like something like we can't create our business, we have the rights to go back to you and to be in, you know, to charge me whatever the money they feel like they lost it. And I truly wanted to do the project, ready to do the project, but I don't want to be fighting in courts with other tenants and stuff like that. When we did it that shape, we even promised them in the near future that when your lease is up, if you wanted to take one of the corners on the other side, we're willing to do that. We do have that approved on paper. So I just can't, there is no way I can move forward with this project, having them cornered like that and like that. They're not gonna agree. Then the next thing, we're gonna have a fight in courts with the attorney by us, locking them from having the business in there. So that's something, as you see, when you see it in the picture, we almost lined them up in a corner like that, where there is no way we can do the project. Why, if we pushed it back to the other way around, definitely they're still gonna have the access by the customer by entering, they store and leave the way it's shaped.
Okay,
For the
thank
ACE.
you. I have a question for legal.
Kamari Pettis-Mackle from the legal department.
They're talking about another property owner saying that they can't do something with their own property as long as they follow the code with the city of Tampa.
I cannot speak to what he's talking about. I don't know I can't speak to that.
Okay,
You're only confined to the code, the city of Tampa
correct.
code and those
Our
regulations.
code is our code.
Right.
So you can't sue for not, anyway, okay, that doesn't make, okay, I appreciate it. Okay, so applicant, petitioner, you are finished with your rebuttal? Yes, okay, so do I have a motion to close? Okay, I have a motion to close by Councilman Vieira, second by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Councilman Maniscalco.
So I want to make a motion to overturn the denial, and let me tell you why this property is unique. And the reason I asked what was on that property before, and it was that grocery store that was set back with a parking lot in the front, like we traditionally see. But that building burned down. Had that building not burned down, that building would still exist in its current configuration, and it would look at like what he's trying to do, not in an L shape, but not to the overlay standards.
But the building burnt down.
I understand, but if the building would not have burned down, it would not have adhered to the East Tampa overlay standards. Because it would
Yeah,
have been
but
grandfathered in, it would have been there.
but
it
it's
exists.
not.
This
It's just
okay.
not.
Well, that's my motion.
Okay,
so
go for it.
I move to overturn the zoning administrator's denial in DE 125-160 for the property located at 4001 East Hillsboro Avenue because the petitioner provided competent and substantial evidence to grant the requests that allow the front yard setback to be a maximum of 138 feet, to allow the principal front facade to not face the public right-of-way, and to allow parking in the front yard, because the request meets the criteria outlined in the City of Tampa Code Section 27-60 for the following reasons. Well, before I get into that, that corner property that he says has this lease to 2031 that has nothing to do with this, but you have an existing building on that corner, and I think that makes it unique. It's not just an empty, completely empty lot, but let's see here. So the petitioner must be an aggrieved person as defined in this chapter, who participated by timely submitting evidence or by otherwise providing sworn testimony in the original application process for which the decision was rendered. So we have some unique situations. First, you have that corner parcel where the check cashing place is at that I think would obstruct, the new development in the L shape that was provided, the alternative by Mr. Cotton. Second, the original building that was there, grocery store, whatever it was, it sat back on the property with the parking lot going all the way to Hillsboro. So if that building would not have burnt down, this property would have looked like it was when it was a Winn-Dixie or whatever, and stayed like that, with a different tenant or a new tenant. So because of that, I mean, if it was just an empty lot and he was trying to reconfigure it, it was different, but it's always been a commercial lot that served the community as a grocery store. And in this case, it's just sat empty for years, burnt down, it was demolished. And I don't know, I hate to see an empty lot on a busy commercial corridor like Hillsboro Avenue. Hillsboro Avenue should be like a Dale Mabry. And then here's an opportunity where we can bring life to that parcel. I mean, it's a pawn shop across the street, that serves the community. Check cashing across the street or on the property serves the community. Again, those are my reasons.
Do we have,
Yeah.
okay, so I have a motion by Councilman Maniscalco and a second by Councilman Vieira. Is there anybody wish to speak to that?
I do not agree. I think that, and especially knowing, we're literally just at a meeting, and I was speaking with people from East Tampa, community members, and they want to activate those corridors, to have space where you can walk up to, businesses. And the East Tampa overlay district is there for a reason, regardless of what was there before. To Councilwoman Hurtek's point, it's not anymore. It's not there. The East Tampa overlay district, I think as Mr. Cotton was saying, is to make it more pedestrian friendly. This is not pedestrian friendly. So whatever was there before, I don't agree. The East Tampa overlay district is there for a reason. That's why we have it in place. And if the more that we can abide by it, we should do that.
Anyone else? Okay, I'll say again, this is completely inappropriate. The overlay has asked for future buildings to be built to the correct, so to have buildings up front, parking in the back. This is exactly what happened with the West Tampa overlay, and then we decided to ignore it. We can't do that against East Tampa. I'm sorry that this person doesn't want to build it, but they can build it. It's a choice, and they're choosing not to follow the city code.
Sorry.
No, go ahead, Councilwoman.
And I also add, I think it's great that we are developing the space, because it is just an empty lot. I definitely would not want it to sit as an empty lot, but at some point, we have to, it's not hard to just do it the right way or whatever, it's not hard to do it the right way.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, you are not allowed to speak. This is the closed hearing.
So I think it's great to develop the land, but do it the way the community wants it to be done.
Okay, so anyone else want to speak? Councilman Miranda.
The only question I have in my mind, and I understand about the overlay, but when you talk about walking up, how many residents do we have in 4001 East Hillsboro Avenue?
people in the.
People,
Residents
people
back
live
there.
behind that.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
know they
that's
live
where the
behind it.
neighbors are.
I understand that. That's what I'm asking a question. I'm looking for an answer.
Well, would you like me to reopen the hearing?
No.
Okay, okay. Anyone else? Okay, so, we have a motion by Councilman Maniscalco, we have a second by Councilman Vieira. Let's do a roll call, please.
Miranda,
No.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Hurtak,
No.
Young,
No.
Vieira. Yes. Carlson. Clendenin. Motion fails.
Can you please, read the record?
Motion fails with Maniscalco, Miranda, Hurtak, Young, and Carlson voting no.
And Clendenin being
Oh, and Clendenin absent, I vote, sorry about that.
Okay, okay, so, that motion doesn't pass. Can someone else try another motion?
Just motion to uphold the
Yeah,
denial.
do
That's
it,
it.
do it. Give it a try if people can add if they want to.
Okay. All right, so I motion to uphold the denial. I move to affirm the zoning administrator's denial DE 1-25-160 for the property located at 4001 East Hillsboro Avenue because the petitioner failed to provide competent and substantial evidence to grant the request to allow the front yard setback to be a maximum of 138 feet, to allow the principal front facade to not face the public right-of-way, and to allow parking in the front yard because the requests do not meet the criteria outlined in the City of Tampa Code, Section 27-60, for the following reasons. Can I say does not follow the East Tampa overlay district,
Sure.
and ensuring, to make the corridor more pedestrian friendly, and that's enough. Okay.
Did they meet their burden necessary to show, to be able to overturn the,
What was the same?
did they provide evidence to meet their burden?
Yeah,
That
did
the-
they provide any evidence that what they,
Not for me.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
do we have a second? Okay, I have a second from Councilmember Carlson. I will add an amendment that, the exceptions are not consistent with the East Tampa overlay, and that they interfere with the rights of others. Yeah, actually, never mind. I think that was fine. Okay, do we have anybody that wishes to speak on this?
No.
Okay, so, I have a motion from Councilwoman Young, I have a second from Councilman Miranda. Roll call, please. I'm
Vieira.
sorry, Vieira, no, Carlson, I apologize, Carlson. Roll call, please.
Maniscalco,
No.
Young,
Yes.
Vieira. Carlson. Miranda,
Yes.
Clendenin, Hurtak.
Yes.
Motion carries with Maniscalco and Vieira voting no, and Clendenin absent, I vote.
Be right back.
Thank you very much. Okay, we are moving on to item 50. Including in item 50, administration update is item number 27, talking about the pier at, I think, Polonis Park. We've had that part of the discussion. Yes, is Mr. Fowler available?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, great. Sorry, they just don't have the camera on. There you are.
How y'all doing?
Doing well. Thank you so much. Mr. Fowler?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, you're supposed to be talking about an administrative update on piers?
Yes, I can update you on the Picnic Island Pier. I did check with Risk, and we do in fact have insurance on that particular pier. So we have an insurance adjuster meeting, a park maintenance supervisor out there tomorrow morning at 10:30 to start the process.
Great.
When I have an update, I'll be able to share more. But right now, they're going to go out there and inspect it and see the damage, and we'll go from there.
Great. T&I, could you please have Mr. Fowler up on the screen? It's always nice to be able to see people.
Can I?
Yes, just a second. There we go. Okay, go right ahead. Councilman Carlson.
Mr. Fowler, thank you for meeting with several of us a couple days ago about piers. Could you just, in 30 seconds, tell the public what's happening with Ballast Point Pier 2, since I'm getting so many requests about it?
Yes, yes.
You told us the other day, and I've given that answer to folks, but maybe you could just tell everybody at once if they're watching.
I'll defer to Mr. Mutterback, who I believe, or Mike Perry's on the line. They can fill you in.
Mr.
Yes,
Mutterback.
yes, Mr. Mutterback. Oh, Mr. Perry.
Okay. Mr. Perry, I was just asking if you could give the public a 30-second update on where we are on Ballast Point and how long it will take to get it repaired or replaced.
Unfortunately, we cannot hear you, Mr. Perry.
Looks like a pilot at Southwest.
It says
Yes.
green. You might try it now just to test.
Okay, test.
There you go.
Okay, sorry about that.
No worries.
Mike Perry, Deputy Chief Financial Officer. Yes, we are working with FEMA on obtaining authorization to proceed on the repairs of Ballast Point Pier. On September 26th, City of Tampa requested a replacement, requested 50% rule on September 26th. Since then, we really have not heard until 2 days ago. FEMA changed their local management in January. They seem to be much more responsive. But again, if we expect to receive money from FEMA, we have to abide by their rules. This project, and even to Fire Station 17, is considered a major project under FEMA rules. A major project is one that costs more than $1 million. And so they're going to be reviewing every step of our bid process. How we select the design bid firm or the architects and everything else. I'm afraid it's going to be a very slow process before we get the pier repaired.
So the short answer for the public is that the delay has been because you have to get FEMA approval because FEMA is helping to fund it.
FEMA is funding it 100%. That is
Okay.
correct, Mr. Carlson.
And can you give us just a rough estimate about how long you think it will take to repair or replace?
Staff went through a short listing of the design build firm, so we have shortlisted that. Now we're just waiting for FEMA to come on board and review our processes. So as we go through, and like any design bid or design build project, it's probably going to take maybe a year to 18 months to design and then maybe up to 2 years to construct. Don't hold that to me. I'm not a peer engineer, but it will be probably I go between 3 to 4 years.
Yeah, I think it's better. Thank you. I think it's better to tell people what it might be, and then if it ends up being shorter, that's better. But folks think it can be easily repaired within a couple months, and it's going to be a long process. And now that Picnic Island is out, people are really upset about it.
And Mr. Carlson, we're not talking about repairing it, we're talking about replacing it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing, is people think that you could just go in and fix it. And then, Mr. Fowler, could I just ask you one question? If for the folks in South Tampa, south of Gandy, where would you recommend they go for another pier in the city?
That, in South Tampa, that's a good question. I mean, they could go to Bobby Hicks Lake. I know it's saltwater, it's freshwater fishing, but, you know, we're doing our best we can. Like I said, we're meeting with the insurance adjuster tomorrow, so we're hoping to have some things rolling at Picnic Island as well.
Are there other parks in other parts of the city you'd recommend?
They could go to, there's a pier off of DeSoto Park in Palmetto Beach. Al Lopez Park has fishing piers. Williams Park has fishing amenities. Gadsden Park has a new fishing floating dock that they can go to. It's not too far down the street.
We might want, I can meet with you offline about this, but we might want to put a sign at each of these and or put something on the website or give it to the neighborhood associations, because people have lots of choices. We have beautiful parks all over the city. And even though there's not one that's 10 minutes away, within 30 minutes, they can get to a really nice one. So thank you so much.
Good idea.
Thank you. I have a question for possibly Mr. Perry and or Mr. Fowler. So the city of Tampa put out a news release in early September that basically said that, you know, they're going to put full strength in the piling, the plumbing, the lighting, and the electrical systems will also be upgraded, and all pier boards will be replaced. Amenities, including the fish cleaning stations, will be better than ever. It says the next step is a competitive solicitation process to hire a design-build team for the project, and design and construction will follow. It doesn't give an estimated completion date, but then we went ahead and dug up the design-build RFQ, and it looks like the RFQ is for $14 to $17 million. And we have, it looks like 6 contracting companies. I mean, in this press release, it never talks about FEMA. Did we at one time believe FEMA was not going to fund this? Mr. Perry, you are muted again. Nope. 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 Unfortunately, we still cannot hear you. You have a green light, but for whatever reason.
Can you go ahead and hear me now?
Now we can hear you. Great.
Okay. Since Hurricanes Helene and Milton, the Ballast Point Pier, at least within revenue and finance, has always been a project destined to be funded by FEMA. And that's
Okay.
been our approach ever since.
Then again, though, I would just this entire piece that was sent out doesn't mention the fact that we were going to have to wait on FEMA. I think that would have been something, and hopefully in the future that could be mentioned, because I mean, the title of this is Project to Restore the Ballast Point Pier Has Begun, and that gives people the impression that it's coming soon. And if we hadn't asked questions, you know, we would still be waiting. Additionally, this kind of flows right into the conversation with item number 27. Thank you so much, Mr. Fowler, for talking about the insurance. It's great to hear that. But Gandy and Pelonas Park improvements, it clearly said that there was supposed to be a dock, there was supposed to be all of this stuff, and especially now that the two docks in South Tampa that people cannot reach because they're, you know, if they've gone into disrepair, the idea of having this dock is so important. Can you please speak to the fact that in the initial design, there was supposed to be a pier, there was supposed to be all these amenities that are no longer on this plan? Can you speak to that and how you plan to make this whole, because that's still what the community is expecting?
I can speak to the fact that we have a $200,000 contingency, and that is to make sure that we can have the bathroom installed and have the sewer system the way it needs to be. We don't anticipate spending it all. So that is exactly where we will put the dock amenity in. And if we do fall short, we will find some way in our budget to make that whole. But we're very confident that we won't spend that $200,000, but we set it aside just in case. As we've seen in the last Saturday, things can change in a minute. We would have never expected Picnic Island Pier to fall into the bay, but we're erring on the side of caution, and we feel like we'll be able to provide that dock amenity for the public before this project is complete.
Anyone? Yes,
If I may,
Councilmember Miranda.
and I know a lot about the saying about this is the park in South Tampa. It might be in South Tampa, but I guarantee it was used by a lot
Oh,
more
yeah.
people in South
Agreed.
Tampa because I
Agreed.
remember going fishing there when I was a kid,
Yeah.
122 years ago.
So what you're saying is that the dock itself and the kayak launch and all of the other things that were promised but that are not in here are only gonna cost $200,000?
No, what I'm saying is we have a $200,000 contingency, and the fact that we feel very confident that we're not going to use it, we will be able to supplement that and put the dock in there. I'm not aware of what other things were cut. I know that it was mentioned before, we won't have a water fountain. We will have a water fountain. I've confirmed that, and that the bathrooms won't have lights. Well, the bathrooms don't need lights because the park closes at sunsets, but what we will have is a skylight in either bathroom to provide visibility during the park operation hours.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Do we have a motion to move the substitute resolution? So I have a motion from Councilman Maniscalco. I have a second from Councilman Miranda. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
And it's item 27.
Yes, that's item number 27. Thank you very much for making a point of that. And now we are moving on to item 53. Thank you so much, Mr. Fowler.
What
Thank
are you doing
you.
with item 31, Madam Clerk?
We passed item
Madam
31.
Clerk, Madam Chair.
We already passed item 31 before lunch. Mm-hmm. Yep. I believe item 53 and 54 sort of go together.
Good afternoon, Council. Emma Gregory, Legal Department. I am here for item number 53, and then
Can I make a suggestion?
Go right
Maybe we can cut this way.
Councilman Carlson.
I would, we've had several updates over the years about how there's a plan and the staff meet with some of the folks in downtown, but the folks in downtown are all upset about the plan. Nobody can get through, there's gridlock, there's long-term preference being given to pedestrians instead of cars at the turn underneath the convention center, which doesn't work because it backs up the traffic all the way. And we've talked about this like 4 or 5 times publicly. And also, I think it's Cumberland coming out of the garage at Water Street is cut off, so you can't get to the Salmon. And then people, the police cars are there and they direct people back toward the arena when they're trying to get out of the arena. So I would like to make a motion to create an ordinance that prohibits city staff from blocking roads or blocking traffic without city council's prior approval per event. Because the administration seems unwilling to correct this, and then they put things in the document that are really offensive, like, you know, it's signed and sealed. That's the new excuse for everything, signed and sealed, just like the red light at Greco Plaza, which is unnecessary. You can pay an engineer to put whatever you want, but we're a big city now. Tampa's a big city. We need a system that works. Blocking the roads indefinitely so hordes of pedestrians can get by is not acceptable. Blocking traffic in South Tampa all the way down Platt Street to Hyde Park, or blocking it down to Rome or Howard on Bayshore is not acceptable. We have to open these roads. Vic Bide, who I think is an engineer, I don't know, but he stated months ago that if we just allowed the traffic lights to work during events, we'd be okay. But the Water Street people are not happy, the Lightning people are not happy, the people attending events are not happy. We've got to open the roads. It's not acceptable that you pull out of Water Street and you can't get onto the Selman. And the last time I pulled out of there, I almost got redirected to back to the arena, I was able to turn right by somebody letting me in. I ended up in Ybor City to get out of downtown. It's not acceptable to do that. We need to leave the roads open. And seriously, it takes 2 hours for people to get out because the roads are closed. And I don't know what engineer is coming up with this idea, but it's wrong. And what we need to do is discuss them on a case-by-case basis. If the mobility staff or TPD wants to shut down roads other than an emergency, they need to get city council approval because the public deserves to weigh in. So I can make an official motion, but if legal would like to respond to that, you may argue that it's an administrative thing, but we set ordinances all the time to prohibit things, and this is shutting down our downtown. It's going to destroy the business of our downtown and cause people to not want to live in downtown if we don't fix this. So as soon as you're ready, I can make a motion if you'd like.
I think, I don't know about y'all, I want to hear from staff for 53 and 54.
Well, I'm a Gregory Legal Department. I will talk about Chapter 28, which is the Special Events Code. And please bear with me, I'm getting over a stomach bug, so I'm doing my best here. Chapter 28, Code of Ordinances, sets out the special event permit application, review process, and approval process. Part of the application is submission of a maintenance of traffic plan. You know, every special event is unique, so all of these applications are unique. It's my understanding that mobility staff and TPD review these maintenance of traffic plans, and that's set out in the code that they're the ones to review and approve them. They can make requests, based on the event, but once the application is deemed complete and sufficient, it comes to City Council for approval. So all of those special event permits are approved by council. So there is currently a method in code to not approve them if they are not up to City Council's, it's in your discretion.
Councilman Miranda.
Thank you. And, I'm not the smartest guy in math, but I can count to 2. 1 and 1 equals 2. And the problem, as I see it, is really a systematic problem of timing. It takes a long time for people to get in because they don't arrive all at the same time, right? However, reverse that, they all leave at the same time. So you have a problem that you have the same volumes of cars that are going in systematically, little by little, as they get there in their time. People get off work, they leave the office or whatever, but they don't all arrive at the same time. It seems like they do, but they don't. But when it empties, no matter where it is, every stadium or every event of any large venue exit at the same time. They do not arrive at the same time. That's how I see it around the stadium. That's how I see it at the Ice Palace or the Benchmark. And that maybe I'm incorrect, but when I go there, I don't arrive with everybody else. I arrive when I arrive. So does everybody else. But when you leave, everybody leaves at the same time. That's all I can say.
May I say?
Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, just to give you an idea, and again, we've become a big city now. So one night, just to illustrate, one night in December, I was at an art exhibition at what's it called, Element Hotel, Edition Hotel, and in the courtyard in Water Street, so that event probably had 1,000 people. In the courtyard, there was a Winter Wonderland event at Water Street that probably had 2,000 or 3,000 people. There was something, I think, at the Ice Palace or whatever it's called. There was a Tampa Bay History Center annual gala at either the Marriott or JW Marriott. And then there's other events going on. So these events are starting and stopping at different times, but nobody can get in downtown. Nobody can get out. There are people that live on Harbor Island that are stuck halfway down Bayshore. They can't even get to the convention center to turn right. And there are people in South Tampa who want to get to downtown or get anywhere around downtown, but Platt Street and to some extent Kennedy and Bayshore are completely blocked. There's no excuse why Bayshore should be blocked. If it's normal, then okay, acceptable that Bayshore should be blocked halfway down, then we shouldn't have built everything in downtown. We're a big city. Other cities don't shut down all their roads like this. It's ridiculous that people have to get out. What I want to do, I'd read that chapter 28, but what I'd like to do is add something on top of that that makes it more explicit as an approval for shutting down. I want to set up a deterrent for anybody to do this anymore. It looks arbitrary. Engineers and traffic planners I talk to say it's ridiculous the way this is being done. I don't know why it's being done this way. We have a shortage of police officers. People need police officers all over the city, and we're setting them up blocking roads that people should be able to get by. If I can see the Selman 100 yards from where I am, but then I have to turn around and go back to Ybor because somebody arbitrarily shut off the road, that's not acceptable. And the problem, as I've said many times before, the problem that backs up to Bayshore is because somebody is not following the lights and they're shutting down the traffic from turning right under the convention center, and they're letting unlimited pedestrians go by. If we have to make the pedestrians go somewhere else, fine, but you can't go through 3 traffic lights of letting pedestrians go across and not let people turn right, because it backs up everybody. And then they do the same thing at Palmyra Garage. It's not acceptable to keep coming back every few months and say, well, we can't do anything, it's fine. Because it's not fine. There are people that live downtown now and they can't get to their houses. There are businesses that are suffering because they can't get to them. Water Street, you can't even get to Water Street most of the time because you get blocked before you even get to the convention center.
Have you looked at any of these special event permits?
Yes.
So, there's one right here in Water Street. What are your thoughts on the street closings that are supposed to happen with that one?
I want to prohibit.
Item 22.
I want to prohibit all street closings.
Well, are there street closings for that one?
I don't remember.
No, I'm just asking because Ms. Gregory just told us that the permits come to us and it's up to us to approve them. If we don't want to have these events, we just simply shouldn't approve them. Is that what I'm hearing?
No, what I'm saying is that I think it should be separated, so there's a separate approval for that versus the event.
Can we change the event permits if we choose, Ms. Gregory?
You could, it's my understanding, now, let me caveat this by saying this is not my normal area of the code. You could deny them here at council, and then I think they may have an opportunity to amend their application to ameliorate the concerns, and then they could come back. But as I said, this isn't my typical area of the code. But I have it right here in front of me, so if you don't mind, I'm gonna do a little check.
Sorry to make you do this while you're sick.
Okay, I'm gonna ask I'm gonna allow Mr. Miranda and Mr. Maniscalco, and then we haven't heard from either Mobility nor TPD yet, and I'd like to hear from both of them. Mr. Shelby.
Yes, Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney. I know this is not Ms. Gregory's area of expertise, and neither it is mine, but it has come up in the past. And there's been discussion with whether special event permits should appear at all on the agenda because of the fact it is really an administrative process, and there's really no discretion. By the time it gets to you, first of all, it's very time constrained because it may be something that's coming the next week or two. Yeah. And secondly, that there is, if they check all the boxes, there really is no basis in the code for being able to deny it, which means it would be acting perhaps arbitrary and capricious, which may have an economic impact on a variety of situations. So I've had this discussion with legal in the past, and that's why we are where we are.
Okay, Councilman Miranda.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. You know, let's look at the Selman. It was wonderful when it first opened for the first few years. But guess what? It's not wonderful no more because you can't get in and out of it. It's gridlocked just like the streets. You have to wait in line and it backs up itself. So what's happened to it become what? Antiquated before its time. So when you look at big cities like us around us that are much bigger than us, they may or may not have the same problem. You know why? They have a different means of transportation. The airport doesn't back up to some degree. You park your car, you get on the and you zoom right around, right into the airport. But we can't do that because it costs a lot of dinero, a lot of money. And that's what we really need. We need light rail. The buses, if the buses go out, they get stuck in traffic just like anybody else. That's our problem. It's a good problem and a bad problem. So we have to solve it by changing the mode of transportation. You need more streetcars and you need light rail because you're not going to fix it any other way. Buses are great in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s and the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. But now the congestion has got to the point that there's not a vehicle that does not move in traffic, and it's not their fault. It's the abundance of people moving down because they don't like where they live at, period. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Campbell.
Good afternoon, Council. Brandon Campbell, Director of Mobility. Just a few things to touch on that I think are of interest and related to this. I know Councilman Carlson mentioned a date in December. I don't know if this was the date that you referred to, but we did have an event on Sunday, the 14th, I believe, where we had an event that caused additional traffic beyond what a typical 5K run would do. In our after-action review, I met with Chief Burkaw, and we learned from that particular instance, and we will not set up traffic control in that same manner in the future. So there are times when things are changing, that we try something new, and most of the time it works better than it did on that particular date. So we're constantly trying to evolve and address emerging challenges as we see them come up with special events. So that's one thing. To Councilman Miranda's point, of course we are continuing to look at additional options that are high-level, large investment types of options. Our Regional Infrastructure Accelerator is looking at the downtown to airport connection. Of course, we've spoken to you all several different times about the potential to extend the streetcar into Tampa Heights. And so there are some large-scale city-focused efforts that they'll take a while to come to fruition, but they are being explored. In the interim, or in the near term, we have a few different projects that are not necessarily city-led, but the Expressway Authority, of course, will be reconnecting Whiting Street over to Meridian, reconfiguring the ramps. One of the issues that does come into play with special events, particularly in Water Street and at the arena, is that ramp, I believe it's 6A, that is a spur down to the Morgan Street intersection, becomes problematic when there are high pedestrian volumes. So it is one segment that does routinely get closed. That is going to be reconfigured. The ramp itself is going to be removed, and a new ramp is being built in its place up to Whiting. That should help take some of the traffic out of the hot zone and into the more of the mid part of downtown, so that you can get in and out of that area. Of course, THEA is also widening the Selman Expressway from downtown to the south. That may have some mitigating influence on special events. Of course, that's not its primary intent, but we do expect when the expressway is flowing a little more freely, for that to be a more attractive option to people that might otherwise get caught in some of the traffic that comes in special event timeframes. And then last, I also wanted to mention, I think that we previously had mentioned in this council that we were looking at a downtown special events traffic study. I think that's a commitment we made maybe 18 months ago, somewhere in that time frame. We have asked the TPO to add that to their UPWP, their Unified Planning Work Program, in order to address that from a higher level perspective. We expect that to be, if it's funded, to be in fiscal 27. We've placed that at the top of our list of priorities for them to consider. Of course, they are still in the process of making those final determinations. But should they choose not to fund that, then we'll go back to the drawing board and look for other opportunities to do a high-level study of traffic downtown related to special events. Oh, and one last thing that I did not mention, probably to a lesser extent will impact the event space in the near term, is the connection of Walton and Finley to Meridian from the north part of Water Street. Those are going to be right in, right out access points from Meridian to Water Street. So all of this is going to continue to draw some of that demand to the north, which will hopefully then alleviate some of those concerns that you specifically mentioned, that don't necessarily have that choice, but will have less conflict in the southern portion of the activity zone.
Can I just ask one question?
Can we hear from TBD first?
Can I?
Okay, Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, I mean, we can ask TBD the same question, but when we had asked Vic this, and one of the other times we talked about it, he said, yeah, the lights are timed correctly, so if we just let the lights go and we don't block the streets, then everything will run more smoothly. And the reason why I'd want to separate these is I don't want to stop events. I understand how important events are. But if there's an event that closes down the street one day, yes. But on a regular night when there's events, Cumberland gets blocked and it's 100 meters away to go to the entrance. Can't we just, while in the meantime, before these studies are done, can't we just let the lights go and let people drive? Even when we leave here some nights, we can't go because I can't get to Bayshore because it's all blocked in that direction. Why can't we just let the lights go the way they are, leave the roads the way they are, unless you have a parade where you have to shut things down?
So some of the concerns that you expressed, I think, might be best addressed by TPD in that when they see issues with the traffic control plan or with the response of motorists and pedestrians to the traffic control plan that's in place, they will step in and try to take control and manage from the field. That said, I think where you might see, I would say the most visible response to your suggestion is, in particular, with the outbound traffic from an arena event, what you'll see is really very strong coordination for, say, northbound traffic on Florida or the rest of the grid. As an event lets out, there's a huge amount of pedestrian flow. Most of the time, there's basically a momentary shutdown of vehicular traffic, and then once people sort of dissipate and get into their cars, you'll see very good coordination from the signal system. That said, if the pedestrian volume is either too intense or not following the signals as timed, then the operation of those signals as they provide that message and provide the coordination to drivers, it gets a little bit fuzzy because people might not be able to get past the flow of pedestrians. So there is a definite time frame where the signal system works really well. There's a sort of fuzzy or gray area where the interaction and the behavior of pedestrians and drivers may need some additional interaction by TPD. I will allow them to speak on how they see that threshold sort of playing out in the field as they're watching things unfold.
Just what you described, if you're in South Tampa to get to an event, there are people that have to go to Harbor Island and other things, but to get to an event, you might spend an hour on Bayshore to get close to where it is. And then when you leave, you can't go back on Bayshore. You have to drive all the way past Kennedy and take 275 or something to go over to Dale Mabry and go down. And you shouldn't have to go. All that's doing is creating more congestion for other people when you could just let people out through the normal routes.
Yeah, I mean, I could look at that specifically, look at the traffic control plan. I will say, as things get out, and as Councilman Miranda mentioned, when everyone's trying to get out at the same time, sometimes our best plans in terms of traffic product setup and signal timing, sometimes they get overridden by the masses of people trying to get the same place at the same time.
Thank you very much. See, this is why I walk everywhere. I mean, I'm serious. I'll park at Armature Works and I'll walk to Davis Islands. I did it the other day I think it took me a little over an hour without having to cross the street. It's interesting. And I got a cup of coffee. But yeah, it's frustrating down there. Like, I never park at Water Street or in that area. I walk from here, I walk from somewhere else. And I hope that if we look at expanding the streetcar north, whether it goes beyond Palm to Columbus, that'll help alleviate, where people can go to these events. But, in regards to what Councilmember Carlson is saying, there's so many narrow pathways down there. Yes, it's walkable, but when it comes to cars, it's very tricky. And, people, how do you get to Harbor Island? How do they get home? They're going to be sitting It's quicker to drive to Orlando on I-4 than to get to Harbor Island, so, yes, sir.
Yeah, Jason Delhay, Major Special Operations Division for City of Tampa Police Department. I'll let Captain Hill touch on the arena specifically, because he is over the arena for those games. I just wanted to touch on the special event planning. I heard it multiple times that we arbitrarily do things. I can assure you that my division, who assists in planning special events, has numerous conversations with Brandon's team to try and come up and help with MOT. They're the professionals, they're the traffic engineers, and then we are on the ground and can see how that plan works and what doesn't work, and relay that information to them so that we can make better plans in the future. So there's no arbitrarily doing anything when we're planning special events. Everything's done for a reason, everything's done for a purpose, and we try and do the best we can to create a welcoming environment that doesn't impact the community as any worse than it has to. So I'll let Captain Hill speak to the arena portion itself, since he is over the arena and he's there every game. And we'll come back for the other part too,
Thank
54.
you.
Good afternoon, Brian Hill, Tampa PD Captain. I've been with the department about 19 years now, and for the past 14 years, I've had the experience of either working traffic or being the actual supervisor, now the incident commander at Emily Arena. Well, sorry, Benchmark. So I've seen the trajectory of the traffic changing over the years, getting worse. However, we've been working very closely with Brandon and his team to make sure we're not doing things the old way, but trying to work fluently, because things changes every day. When it comes to holding peds at a corner, we don't hold peds just because we want to hold pedestrians. A lot of times it's because of the actual volume of people on the corner, and we have to hold them for their safety. We have to hold the cars for their safety. So yes, we will temporarily hold traffic for that reason. And also, if the traffic that's, say, traveling eastbound channel side is backed up and they can't continue, we will absolutely continue to hold them so they don't block the intersection, to allow our peds to cross the street safely. When it comes to our egress and our outbound patterns, from traveling around the world and being at different stadiums, I say we have one of the best egresses in the country. We average about 45 minutes getting everybody out. I can't think of one time we've been there an hour after let out of an event to direct traffic out. A couple of the things that we've done to help try to mitigate traffic and also assist with getting people home into Harbor Island. I don't know the last time you traveled there doing an event, but the right turn onto Franklin from Channelside is a right turn only. So people that on Harbor Island know that that's their lane to get on Harbor Island. As far as coming out of the Cumberland Garage, no, you cannot make a left turn to get onto Selman, because now that we've relocated our Uber pickup, our ride share to Jefferson, that area is overly congested. So the new objective is to get them out on Meridian to go northbound onto Meridian to get onto the interstate. So there's different changes that we make throughout the night in order to allow traffic to move more swiftly. Sometimes it does goes against the MOT, but it's to better the experience for our guests at our events.
Yeah, you see that, I mean, there are, and I don't want to argue with you, but you talk about it being arbitrary. Brandon said that TPD makes the decision. TPD says that Brandon makes the decision. Putting Uber in a place that blocks people from South Tampa from getting back to South Tampa, it seems like an arbitrary decision. And I understand if you have to temporarily block roads, but I'm not talking about arena events. It's bad enough for arena that if you're heading west on Cumberland, they send you right back to the arena after the event is over. I don't understand why the thing can be opened again. The other thing is that there are multiple events going on in downtown. There are events happening all over the place, and so traffic is done all the time. My request to you, and I talked to Chief Burkow about this the other day, my request to you all is that you all change this and open it. And I brought this up 4 times now. There are thousands of people that live in downtown and Harbor Island that would be here if I asked them to. I'm pleading with you guys, please, this is not acceptable the way it is. We need to, whatever I need to do to help you work with it, please let me know. But when people can't get to the restaurants on Water Street, the people on Harbor Island can't get to Harbor Island, something's wrong with the system. Or what the administration is telling us by not fixing this is that we've overbuilt downtown. And I don't think they want to prevent any more development of downtown, but that's the signal they're sending, is that we can't handle anything else in downtown because there's too many people. We've got to fix this. It's not an acceptable situation. When South Tampa gets blocked because of an event or multiple events, it's not acceptable. When people in South Tampa can't get to an event or can't get out of downtown, they have to drive to USF to come back to Tampa, or they have to drive to West Tampa to get back to South Tampa. That's not acceptable either. So whatever I need to do to help you guys to fix this, I'd like to do it. But this is something that I'm going to get more aggressive about, because this is in economic value. This is wasting thousands of hours of people's time. It's angering people, and it's hurting business in downtown. It's not acceptable.
Okay, Councilman Miranda.
Thank you very much, Madam
Oh, I'm
Chair.
so sorry. I apologize.
Sorry, if I could
Yes.
speak to
Yeah.
closures of downtown. The only time that we actually have any hard closures is at the end of the night. And that's one of the main thoroughfares we close is Channelside. And that's because you have tens of thousands of people dumping out the arena at once, and it's completely unsafe to allow traffic to continue with the lights or pedestrian crossing signs to allow those people to cross the streets. Other than that, our roads are free now. Is there redirection? Absolutely. But hard, complete closures are not done until the end of the night.
Thank you.
Jason Delahaye, sorry again, Major. Every single event we look at, we also know what events are going on throughout the city. So our Special Incident Management Unit is one of the security planners for a vast majority of the events that come through Tampa. We have a good relationship with the private partners too. So a lot of times we do know some of the private events that are happening there. All of that is taken into account when we're doing plans with Brandon's group. Are there changes sometimes that are made on the fly by law enforcement? Yes, absolutely. It's to preserve public safety. It's to help people and pedestrians. But that's not done lightly, and we don't just arbitrarily do it. There's a reason behind it. We are always trying to improve our plans. We understand the traffic issues. We understand the impact that it has on the community, and all we want to do is try and lessen that as best as that we can.
The easiest, simple thing is if you could move the Uber, it was someplace else before you guys moved it there. People in South Tampa have to go west, not north. And I would recommend that you reopen Cumberland and let people get to the Summit, let them get to Bayshore. And whatever we need to do, if through the CRA we need to buy a piece of property to put the Uber there, fine. But we have to fix this somehow.
Okay, Councilman Miranda.
Thank you, Madam Chair, again. And I would assume that you gentlemen have not only your police officers that are working that area, but others. There's a traffic right here in the corner of Florida Avenue, and you got to stop traffic from coming this way. If not, you really back up everything. They'll be backed up for a week. But this is not the only stadium that's got a problem. I can tell you where the other stadium is at, Raymond James. An hour before the game and an hour after the game, the people who live in that area cannot leave home because you have 60,000 people there. You got 40,000 cars or 20,000 cars leaving. And I guarantee you there's more accident on after game day on MacDill between Columbus and MLK than more likely anywhere else in the city. I was one of them. But the cars are lined up for 10 blocks without being able to communicate travel east and west. And I understand all that. We understand that. So this is no different than when anybody else lives. And I have compassion for them, but how do you fix it? You never had a convention center. You never had a hotel downtown. You never had a hockey arena. You never had nothing. And Channelside was nothing but an empty dry dock that was full of rats and everything else. And now you have all the new development. Of course you're going to have a backup. And that hasn't finished. What about the north side of Channelside, where it's vacant land? And you got the 3 silos. All that's got to be developed sooner or later. So the problem is not going to get any easier. It's going to get tougher to manage. We do not have a transportation system, and it's not your fault or my fault. It's got to come, and it's better come quicker than later. Because if not, no one's going to gain anything. Not only the businesses, the people are going to resent living there. And that's what I think is going to happen.
Okay, thank you very much. I still believe we have item number 54, talking, I apologize, Councilwoman. Yeah, if you just put your
sorry.
line on, so I know.
No,
Yeah,
well, I
Councilwoman
just
Young.
wanted to say, thank you for bringing this conversation. I think it's a healthy conversation. that when you were talking about, there was a night, I think it was, whenever the History Center was having their gala, it was the History Center, there was the Christmas market, and then there was something happening at the Amalie, and I remember I was getting dropped off, and I ended up just like walking in my gown to the History Center because it was too much. But it's good for the city because there's people here. But I think this is healthy conversation, and also it goes back to transportation and an even bigger conversation that I really think as part of the foundation that we really need to start addressing. If we're going to continue to grow, we have to have the right transportation. So I don't know if there's a grant that we can go for to help us with the streetcar or something, but I really think we have to start looking at our transportation and how we're moving people throughout the city. Because I think this is good because it's part of a broader conversation of the importance of transportation and eliminating the cars and everything. So thanks just for bringing, because it's good conversation, healthy conversation to have, and thank you all as well for being here to kind of talk with us through it. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Agreed.
Transportation.
Yep, I can't second or third that enough. We really, and I will disagree. I think buses have a role. But I'm sorry, Councilman Maniscalco, and then I'll.
Yeah, thank you very much. And just a closing remarks, compliments to myself and to her, Councilmember Hurtak. She bikes, I walk, so we try to do our part. But most recently, a few months ago, I walked to the convention center for the NAACP gala, and I had a wedding in Ybor. I hopped on the streetcar from there and got to Ybor and came back. So when you talk about transportation, if we expand the system, expand the network, it works for me to a certain capacity. But if we invest in it further, like so many others, and I can tell you recent stories, the last month, New York City, I went, took the train. Washington, D.C., took the train. You never had to touch a car rental facility. Here, it's tricky. But, growing up, I would hear, Tampa doesn't have this. There's nothing here. Now we're so congested and we're so crowded. So it's like one or the other, Exactly. So thank you very much.
Okay, yes, Mr. Campbell.
Just one last thing. Again, Brandon Campbell, Director of Mobility. To Councilwoman Young's comments, a couple of things. I think we've probably briefed each of you prior to your joining on the Regional Infrastructure Accelerator, and we'd be happy to sit down and talk to you about what that program is and what we're looking at. And if we have not happened to brief any other council members and you're interested, happy to do that as well. And then also you mentioned a grant for the streetcar extension. We do anticipate that if and when we get to the point where we are ready to construct, that will be about a 50% grant from the Federal Transit Administration. And up until now, I don't know what the future is with the state match, but there was a point at which the state had pledged a state match for half of the remaining half. So we're looking at a quarter of the overall cost. We've got a lot of steps between here and there to get things lined up, but that's the financing that we had previously anticipated when we looked at this extension.
It is still massive.
Yeah, and what would you said? You said regional
Regional Infrastructure Accelerator, yes.
Can I set up?
Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, just to set up thank you all on the 53. On 54, just to set it up, this is a much smaller problem, but we were discussing one night, I was trying to get here, and it was the sheriff's department that shut down, I heard for a group of coaches or something, but they were pushing everybody aside. It was confusing. People didn't know where to go. Cars were almost smashing into each other. I was stuck just out here half a block. And so it only happened once, but as we were discussing, we thought it might be good to at least have you all come. I've read the report that you all submitted on the reasons why, and I at least don't want to take away police escorts for funerals, but if the president or some head of state comes to town, I completely understand a police escort, but if it's a high school group of coaches, is there, the question is there a way for us to limit what the police escorts are to try, because it just makes this traffic jam in downtown so much worse?
So hopefully I can Major Jason Delahaye again, I'm sorry. Hopefully I can put your mind at ease a little bit for how TPD does escorts. So a vast majority of our escorts are pre-planned things for special events or funerals or dignitaries, things like that. We work very closely with the Traffic Management Center and Brandon's people to try and use light cycles to help us get to places so we're not having an impact on the community. Also, if it's a larger length of time and stuff, we don't just shut down, okay, we're leaving point A, shut down every road to point B. We don't do that. We try and time the closures so it's least impactful to the community. If you go up to the highest levels of the escorts that we do, even those are timed. We will run those routes at the same time that we know that the escort's going to be coming through, and time how long it takes a car to get from here to here in real time, multiple times, so that we can figure out when we have to shut down certain roads before we get to those locations. So we try and time it using Brandon's people and intelligence prior to. Real-time on-the-ground intelligence to lessen the impact. So intersections and all that stuff is not just shut down for a large amount of time.
Great, that's all I have. Thank you. Thanks a lot for coming.
And I have a question about that too, because similar to Councilmember Carlson, I've actually had numerous complaints from citizens where it's Florida Highway Patrol that is leading what were at the time, I believe, buses for either like a national championship or something like that, and which didn't seem to actually be an emergency. You all follow a certain protocol. Does Florida Highway Patrol follow a different protocol?
I can't speak to their protocol. I don't work for them. There are multiple agencies that do escorts within the city.
My question.
I can just speak to how we do them.
Okay.
And there's some escorts that we just do a lead and tail in its flow of traffic where we're stopping at lights, but we're helping get through, or we're making sure that the whole package can get through a light if it turns red. And then there's others that we're gonna go through lights or time it with Brandon's people, which is mainly what we do, so that we don't have an impact on the community.
Okay, so that's kind of what I figured, but that was a good time to ask. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Appreciate you. Have a, all set? Okay, next, Councilman Vieira, would you like to set up these next ones?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you very much. And is Ms. McKenzie going to be, is she virtual or?
That's a good question.
There you go. That's what I
Okay.
thought. How are you, Ms. McKenzie? And may I set this up if I may?
Sure, I need to go somewhere. I don't know who to leave it with, because Vieira's not here. I think it might be
I
you.
guess that would be me.
Okay.
I guess that would be
So-
me, unless if that's very slowly. Nope,
No.
I'm glad to do it.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. I'll be
Thank
right
you.
back.
And so thank you very much, Madam Chair, as you leave, and I guess I'm whatever acting chair, however it is. Is that, oh, hey, there you go. Hey, Ms. McKenzie, how are you? Good, good, good. So you know what, let's do this if I may. Let's first have you do your presentation, and then I had some questions and thoughts on that, so go ahead if you'd like. And Guido.
Thank you. Thank you, Council. I am Brenda McKenzie, Director of Workforce Partnerships, and I am here today to share an update on our Intellectual Disabilities Program, which is now the Mike Phillips All Abilities Program. The program came under Workforce Partnerships starting in September 2025. Since that time, we've really worked hard to increase the utilization and the impact of the program overall. To do that, we've reached out to the agencies several times. We've met with them, we've heard their concerns, we've heard the opportunities. The good thing is we have a solid program, but we really wanted to see how we really could increase the impact of the program looking forward. Based on those sessions, there were a couple of concepts that came forward and how we could better enhance the program. One had to do with the reimbursable items. Originally, the program was set up to only reimburse on the actual salary of the employee, the intern, while they're in our employ. But while that's happening, the agency is doing so much counseling and career coaching and readiness for their ultimate long-term career that we wanted them to be able to be reimbursed for all that they're pouring into those individuals while they're with us. So consequently, we've updated the agreement so that up to 10% of the contract amount can go towards those administrative costs relating to coaching the individual to ensure that they're ready for that next step. We received the amount of the new contracts recently in the past 10 days. Those agreements have gone out to the agencies. We've received 3 of them. I think 2 of them, we've received 2 of them as of this afternoon, with 1 more anticipated to come in later today. And we'll be coming back to you in short order for approval of those agreements so that we can move forward. The other item I just wanted to bring up that came from the conversations is how the program is marketed overall. So we've done some enhancements to the program marketing to make sure people externally are aware about this opportunity and the wonderful partners that we're working with, but also internally, the departments are aware of the benefits of working with the students in this program and what they'll get out of the program. So consequently, we've set up a new marketing effort for the program, and we're kicking that off on the 27th of this month with a showcase where the agencies will be able to come in, they'll be able to talk about their students, the kind of training that they've received, and we'll be able to better match them with those in departments. That concludes the highlights of the program so far. It's a pleasure to work on it, and I am here to answer any questions you may have.
Great, thank you, ma'am. And I'm looking at my calendar on the 27th. What time is that at?
1 o'clock, 1 to 3.
Okay, good. I can make it. That's great. Yeah, so a couple of things, if I may, on this. So obviously a very important issue. This is something that's been, we passed this in 2022, and I've spoken before about my frustration on this. But we're now in very good hands with you, Ms. McKenzie. I know you have a very personal connection to this issue. And you're like a lot of the folks who have worked on this before, a very good and compassionate person, and you have a personal connection to it. You know, for evidence, I guess, if you will, of the potential of this program, I cite Eric, who's one of our interns that started here with the city and is now a contractor, who, thanks to the work of Eric, we're developing a program with other law enforcement agencies where people with autism who are pulled over by law enforcement can have a slip which they can give the officer so as to avoid any misunderstandings, lack of knowledge on the symptoms of autism, being on the spectrum, and so forth. So imagine that, which is we give this young man an opportunity and he comes in and affects policy change. The idea here is people's God-given potential and maximizing that through local investments. That's very, very important. So couple of things. So I know, correct me if I'm wrong, we do have this up on the website, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, very good. And we had requested, Tampa City Council requested that this be named for a number of reasons. The Mike Phillips All Abilities Program, is that the name, correct?
Correct, sir, and that's what's on the website as of now.
That's what I thought. Yeah, I saw that. I just wanted to confirm that publicly. And I did that for a couple of reasons. Number one is because Mike Phillips, God rest his soul, such a special person, and his mom, Karen Clay, is a wonderful person. She has her inaugural luncheon, by the way, on February 13th, I think it is. Yeah, no, I know. I'll let all council know. If I didn't say that, Karen would get me and everything. But, and she's Karen is like one of my favorite people. I love her a lot. But also, you know, it's my intent, I'm on city council for another 9 months or so, whatever it is. And I want this thing to be permanent. And I know of no better way to make it permanent than to have Karen Clay on it. So that's something that's very important. So a couple of quick questions for you, if I may, which is, so for this program, we do have funding this year, correct?
That's accurate.
I'm sorry, what?
Yes, we do.
Great. What's the monetary amount that we have right now funded in this year's?
Each agency is allocated $15,249.
And how many agencies?
5 agencies are currently in the program.
Okay, there you go. I like that. And how many interns are we looking at working here within the city of Tampa under this program?
If we're able to get the full utilization that we're working on, that's approximately 2 interns per student or per agency. Mm-hmm. So 10 in total.
Good. Yeah, that's a good number. And how many, now 10 interns, how many departments, I'm not going to ask you how many departments we have in the city of Tampa, but how many departments would be prospectively working in this? Because I want all of our departments to be involved with this, as many as can. Maybe some can't, but as many as can.
That's why we're doing the showcase, so that we can collectively, with the agencies, market it to city departments. It's, we want to make sure that the city departments know the capabilities of the students. Some of the programs do customer service. I mean, they do a plethora of training for the students, and we just really want to make sure that we're matching them appropriately. So we're excited about the showcase.
Okay, great, and that's very important. I look forward to being there at the showcase. I have some things on my calendar, but I'll certainly make time that day. So what I want to do, Council, is whenever, Madam Chair, whenever it's appropriate, and first off, again, Ms. McKenzie, I just wanted to thank you for your work. You've reached out to me on this. You know how important it is to me, and I know how important it is to you, and important to all of us. Again, this is something that those of us who have been touched by this issue, having someone in our life, I have my oldest brother, Juan, who's mentally disabled, and, having a loved one with that touches you personally. But I always say you don't have to be touched personally by it to have empathy and compassion and decency and love, and that's what it's all about. So, may I? Whenever,
right ahead.
Thank you, ma'am. So here's going to be my motion, Council, which is on May 7th, I'd like to have an update on the continued status of this program, either in person or virtual, whatever it may be. And I'd also like to do a couple of things, which is, number one, I want to make the first week in May, I don't know how to do this permanently, where we hear every single year on the status of this program. So my motion is multi-part. Number one, May 7th, an in-person report on the internship program in terms of how it's going. Number two, yes, ma'am.
May I recommend
Yes.
separating those? Because if you want
I
something
will.
that's going to repeat every year, it should probably be a separate motion.
Yes, ma'am. So I'll do that. So number one, Council, my first motion is on May 7th of 2026 that we have an in-person update on the status of the program, as well as, if y'all could, bring a couple of the folks who are in this program to update us in person. And Ms. McKenzie, do you think by May 7th we'll have liftoff?
If we're able to get the agreements through you in the time frame that we've set off, we should have someone in place.
Great, marvelous. So that's my motion first is May 7th.
I have a motion from Councilman Vieira. I have a second from Councilman Maniscalco. Any conversation? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you, Council. And Madam Chair, pursuant to your suggestion, I would also motion that from now on the first week of May of each year, we have an in-person report on the status of the special needs internship program.
My only recommendation would be to change it, because its now proper name is the
Yes.
Michael Phillips All Abilities
Yeah, you're darn right.
Internship
Okay.
Program.
Thank you.
Yeah,
There you go.
yeah.
Mike Phillips. There you
Yeah,
go.
if we're going to make it annual, we should definitely have the name in
Yes,
there.
ma'am.
So I have a motion from Councilman Vieira that the name is the Mike Phillips All Abilities Internship Program. It is in item number 56 if you need the full name. So I have a motion from Councilman Vieira. I have a second from Councilman Maniscalco. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
And that's it. Thank you, Council. Ms. McKenzie, thank you very much. God bless you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah,
It's all
everything's,
tied.
yep.
Yes,
Thank you.
so thank you so much. Appreciate how, first of all, I want to thank our clerk staff for putting all those next to one another. That was a great choice. So I want to level set 58 a little bit. We've had a lot of email, which I think is very exciting because it means people are paying attention and they really value what City Council can bring, and they value our role in the budget. But what I would like to say is that for the very first time, we are all going to hear what each other has to say about this. So this is probably not going to be a 4-hour conversation. So I just want to set it there that we still have motions to make in terms of like going forward for resolutions. So with that, I'm going to invite Ms. Kopesky up to introduce and to talk about the surplus. This was my motion, so I will say that I am very excited about everyone's participation from council, but also the public. Coming back. Oh, okay. Okay. So your PowerPoint is actually up on the screen as well.
Oh, great.
So
Wonderful.
if you would
Thanks so
prefer
much.
it that way.
Yep, that's great. Hager Kopesky, City Council Budget Analyst. Okay, so I think it was maybe a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, the CFO presented the preliminary numbers for fiscal '25, and at that time, there was roughly $10 million that was presented as surplus. Specifically, there were a couple items that were addressed as risk items that were to be considered as part of that balance. One of them was the need for the new sidearms, and the second one was the fact that the school speeding program is not quite moving along at the pace they thought it would, so the revenue is not coming in at the timing that was originally planned. That said, the net amount that we are going to be considering is $5.3 million. And so over the last few weeks, I know all of you have been thinking about, talking to constituents about where we wanted to prioritize those funds. So now, respectfully, I know that you want to focus on certain things for today. Are you comfortable with me going through?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
That is what we're,
All right.
that's what I was saying, is we've got a lot of people saying a lot of things, and this is our chance today to kind of talk it out. But what I was trying to level set the public is we aren't making
decision.
Like, I don't think we probably won't come to a full baked decision today. but,
Understood.
Can I say one thing before she goes through the details?
If you'd like to, that's fine.
Just real fast.
Councilman Carlson.
Two things. One, we saw in the presentation that the CFO gave us that in each of several buckets, there was like 27 million overage, but somehow the administration spent 24 of it and left us 3 million. We've got to, technically there was like $100 million surplus. So we've got to, I don't remember the exact number, but we're going to spend a lot of time on a little bit amount of money. The administration should have gotten our feedback and the public's feedback. The second thing is that this administration has maxed out the credit cards. We're more than $3 billion in debt. We really don't have a surplus. As much as I'd like to spend money on all these things, I'd rather say for the sake of the community that we take that money and get the administration to pay down debt, because the next city council and mayor are going to be saddled with enormous debt that we've never seen in the city's history.
Okay,
Understood.
well, that is definitely something to talk about.
All right, so
But
if I
let's
could-
go through this first.
Right, if I could just get it visible here on the screen. Yep, all right. Wonderful. Okay, so just to go through what I would call our major buckets. We know there was a lot of communication from the community, as well as just some initial feedback when the approvals for applications were going out. And so one of the first areas of consideration is the fact that there were additional requests for social action funding. I believe today, because those programs tend to rely on this funding to continue, that is one of the areas that we would hope to get some consensus from the group to be able to then provide feedback to those organizations. So we will go through, and it will be visible where the additional funding was requested for those organizations. And then really the summary here is just intended to show, having taken in feedback from all of you, this is the summary of where we stand today, and with the bulk being in the theme of Parks and Rec. Yes?
Just finish this slide, but yeah.
Yes, and so again, this was just very high level to say, given where we were starting the exercise at 5.3, we are roughly 400 over that.
I just wanted to sort of level set, though, that this is not additional social action arts. We cut the budget for 27 by $500,000.
Fair.
So this
when you were presented with the budget, the budget had been reduced significantly. You, just to make that point very clear, you agreed to move the budget forward at $1 million, and that $1 million consisted of recommendations from administration, and then these are additional funding that has been recommended from the group, the council. All right, so, okay, let's see what I can do here. Can you, and I know you won't be able to fit the whole thing, but, so this is really, do you all have this also visible in front? Okay,
Yeah.
I just want to make sure.
And we can see it on our screens.
Great. So I hadn't necessarily planned to go all the way through each one.
You don't need to, I don't.
Yep. So this is just the detail behind that initial 485,000. Does anyone want to speak to anything here before I move on?
I'm happy with the list.
All right.
Yes, Councilman Vieira.
I'm not gonna, I'll talk about it later, but there are some terrible, for the portico. And again, I'll get into this, but the Penguin Project in particular, intellectual disabilities and arts program cut by 75%. It's gonna decimate them. Nobody wants to do that, but I'll address that later when the time comes. Do we discuss that now, Madam Chair, or?
No, I was gonna let Ms. Kopesky finish, but definitely,
Yeah.
we
I'll hold off.
we will have room to have conversation for sure.
Okay, so we'll get the presentation back up. Great, thank you. Just give it a minute.
We can see it on our screens, but not there yet.
Okay, excellent. So, going back to that summary page, this is now where you're going to see the additional detail behind what initial feedback I received from everyone in terms of Parks and Rec, stormwater mobility, and then a few miscellaneous items. And I want to make clear too, mobility and stormwater maintenance were both items that I heard, I would say consideration for needing to at least be thoughtful about them. There was not necessarily as much specificity at that point, but I didn't want them to go without airtime, so to speak. I would say that one thing for the group is we know that we have quite a bit of paving money that we have in 2026, just based on the offer transportation money that we received, plus some of the reallocation that we've already done. Only mentioning that from a sense of, for the current and probably following 12 months, we probably have quite a bit of funding for the pace we can handle. Again, stormwater maintenance is just being thoughtful to the topic. At this point, I would leave it to you whether you're hearing feedback on that needing to have additional funding. I will also say that based on where we finished the prior year and the money you had funded from the prior year's surplus, there is still available balance from that for maintenance over and above the budget. So again, don't feel like I don't believe those two are high-risk areas at this point. Okay, so now I'm going to pause, and given that the big item and the big discussion is likely to start with parks, would you like me to simply turn it back over for discussion to the group? Because at this point, that's really where the bulk of the interest is lying.
Sure. If we could just have that page back up so that the public can also see. I think they're used to our voices at this point. So I saw Miss Councilman Maniscalco's light. I will. So let's before we get started on this conversation, let's talk kind of ground. Do we want to give everybody like 3 minutes, and then so we can do 2 minutes after? That way.
May I speak on social action and the other priorities? I can squeeze it in.
Why don't we start? Why don't we talk about these priorities, and we can come back to social action arts.
Let's do that.
That way, you don't have to talk about it in 3 minutes. Ms. Kopesky, what is your recommendation? This is kind of what
I agree. I mean, I believe just in terms of the degree of interest and probably where most of the conversation and debate will be is in this particular slide. So I just assume go ahead and go through the rationale for where the numbers came from, as well as what their intent.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Okay. Yes.
just from a process point of view, could we, maybe everybody wants to say anything, but I'm okay just approving it. And so I wonder if we could just say, if anybody's against it, we could.
Well, the problem is we have more requests than we have money, so we can't just straight approve it. There's $500,000 too much. So we kind of do need to have the discussion. Also, yeah, I think, so that's part of the issue.
And to the extent too, I did want to leave the flexibility that in the event there were things that have happened since this list was accumulated, and I know there has been a lot of communication, if there was something new that any of you were going to introduce, I wanted to make sure the floor, was available for that in terms of the.
I think we should push it back on the administration and tell them to find it extra.
So I will, that's an idea. Yes, Councilman Maniscalco, go right
Okay.
ahead. You have your first 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. So I saw the Councilman Carlson memo. It was sent to everybody. in regards to, I believe that totals at $2.5 million in the subtotal of District 4, is that correct?
Correct, correct.
And I want to support that, because looking at it line by line, there have been so many neglected spots throughout the district that I've seen personally. Again, I take my stepdaughter to a lot of different parks. We see it, we hang out there. I don't complain, I'm a happy person and I enjoy what's there. However, so much has been invested in the rest of the city and other parks, new parks. I mean, you can look at McFarland Park, which still needs a lot, but like their playground, the mural, I can go on and on. In the East Tampa facility that we just dedicated, which is spectacular and so well deserved, we're investing there. But I like the list. I know we have a variety of items, so I want to support what Councilmember Carlson put in the memo. The yellow jackets, I think that is very important. We have Robin Lockett. Miss Robin Lockett has come out and spoke, but I've spoken about it, but I've heard from a lot of people in the community, like old school Tampa people saying, you know, going back years, they're pushing for the yellow jackets. One pool improvement, District 5, 200,000. We already know. There's a lot of smaller ones. Sulphur Springs Boardwalk, that needs a lot of work. Henry and Ola, speaking to the Seminole Heights community for years, and now Councilmember Miranda's brought it up several times. I mean, it's just been, you know, they were out of a trailer, they were whatever. But I want to support as much as possible. In regards to the social action, I think I'll save it for the next round of discussion. But, you know, the priorities are there. One last thing, we did get several emails regarding funding Route 1. I don't know if this is going to take part in this discussion.
I have comment on that.
You have something, so I'll wait for Councilmember or Chairperson Hurtak. But that's really it for now. I'll hear what everybody else has to say, and then I have some comments on social action.
Okay, I can just go ahead and quickly give the update on the it's actually the Route 400 that goes up Nebraska. So this came out of a Transit Now Tampa Bay meeting, and we actually, yes, but that's okay. I knew what you meant. But so apparently no one reached out to Hart, and so we reached out to Hart, or I'm sorry, Brannon, Jordan Lazo reached out to Hart, and they said that as far as frequency and as far as that, the Hart currently would like to continue working with the city on the FY27 budget, but right now they already have their budget set and done. They would prefer not to pursue it, and that is coming straight from Hart. And as much as we'd like to support them and help them, I also will tend to defer to what Hart wants. So I will. Absolutely, we can talk about it. We have in next month, we're starting to talk about 2027. So I wanted to level set that and get that out of the way. We have, I'm sorry, was it, I didn't see who was first.
Whoever.
Was it Lewis or?
Councilwoman Young.
Councilwoman Young, it's your floor.
And we're talking about this slide right now.
Just talking about this
Okay.
slide,
Yes.
3 minutes for this go round.
Yes, okay, so, well, one, it is no secret, that anything especially pertaining to youth, activities, opportunities for youth, I'm wanting to support 100%. I want to, there's 2 items on here, that are specifically for Sulphur Springs. And one, I wanted to be sure that, we have Sulphur Springs included in here because they don't have a CRA. And I've, even before coming on to council, I know that it had come up in conversation a few times about just making sure that we actually are dedicating funding to Sulphur Springs in that area. And so I wanted to just be sure to make sure that we have some money to go towards the area. The Sulphur Springs action plan, they are finishing up. I believe they're in I think it's phase 3 or should be finished with phase 3. And so my idea for wanting to, just have money to go towards the program, to go towards the plan so it doesn't become a plan that's shelved, that there's already money in place to start something. And there is, the report is very extensive. And so, we can, maybe, speak with community and decide, okay, out of what comes out of that, what will be the first thing that we want to put money towards. But I just wanted to be sure that we put something in there so that we can really get the ball rolling with that. I worked for phase 1 of that project, and so I would really love to see it go forward. I know community has really worked hard and really participated a lot in that project. Again, the Teens Leading Change program, I spoke with a lot of community members about just having that program and how life-changing it is for the students. And then I've already talked about increasing the youth program from 48 slots to 70 slots, which is something that we've heard a few times, increasing the number of slots for our teens and our students to participate. And then also, we have the parks, again, which, I've spoken a lot about just the importance of having parks and places for our youth to go. And so making these changes so that we can continue to have nice parks for our children to go to so that they can continue to have activities and things to do, as well as the families. And of course, Yellow Jackets, I know that is something that is extremely important, and I know we've all heard about it numerous times. So I was just hoping that we, support these changes for my district. Thank you.
Okay, Councilman Vieira.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just speaking on the parks issues, couple of things, which is District 7. Okay, we've talked here about different things. I like this park, I like this. District 7 is a quarter of this city, right? And I always say, this is political, but when I leave, the person who replaces me has got to fight like hell. And I mean that. And you're a constituent, obviously, Hager, you're a constituent. You know exactly what I'm talking about, which is you got to talk about District 7 in North and New Tampa. I want to support a lot of the things here from my friends in South Tampa. I have a lot of friends in South Tampa, hear a lot about the parks. I want to support that 110%, but we also need equity for District 7, for North and New Tampa. That's certainly something that's very important. I think that a motion having a couple of things, which is asking Parks and Recreation to come back with some of their suggested needs to put an emphasis on non-CRA areas, number one, right? And I'm willing to stipulate to something of whatever percentage it is to South Tampa, because again, there are a lot of needs out there. But I'm not going to let go the needs that District 7 has, especially in North Tampa. A lot of working class people out there, just like we have a lot of folks south of Gandy who are working class, and I want to support them, but we got to support them. I think that's something that's very important. We hear a lot from a lot of parts in Tampa. I know a lot of times my constituents don't show up at Tampa City Council, but just because they don't show up in public comment doesn't mean they don't go to work every day and pay their taxes and pay that millage rate, which funds our salaries and which funds our parks. And I want to make sure that they have a voice up here. That's certainly something that's very important. I would refer folks back to the Parks Master Plan. Take a look at it. What district did they say that had the least amount of parks and the biggest deficits? District 7. And especially New Tampa, we have something in the budget this year that's coming up for New Tampa that I've been fighting for a long time for our friends in K-Bar Ranch, but we can't forget that. So again, I want to support South Tampa. I hear from my friends and our constituents in South Tampa, and I want to support Councilman Carlson and the things he wants to do out there. Certainly I do, but I do think we need some guidance from Parks and Recreation on all parts of our city to just modify this sum and put some additional funds there for District 7, really non-CRA parts. If you're in the CRA, you've got that bucket of money that you can go to, but like Councilwoman Young said, you have Sulphur Springs, you have our friends in South Tampa, and then you've got New Tampa and the working class backbone of the city of Tampa, North Tampa. Thank you.
Okay, Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, and just to the residents of North and New Tampa, Councilmember Vieira has been a huge champion for the 9 or 10 years, whatever he's been on council. And during the time I've been, he's been a huge advocate for North and New Tampa. And I think I've approved everything that he proposed for that area. South Tampa has, and over the years, we've gotten fire stations, or at least budgeted fire stations, and parks and disability parks and other things in North and New Tampa, community centers. And so there's always more. There's what I tell people is the parks are falling apart all over the city, sidewalks are falling apart all over the city, and roads are falling apart all over the city. But New Tampa is funding the CRAs. I mean, North and New Tampa are funding the CRAs because that's where the money's coming from. And what it means is that we're paying the police and fire that the CRA districts are not. And so South Tampa has been really patient for a long time. This request doesn't come from me. It comes from the moms of South Tampa, of which there are thousands, and they're finally fed up. And you know, Councilmember Vieira has been a huge advocate for disability accessibility, and you know, constituents were showing me the last few days. I'm sure you've seen the same pictures. The regular swings have mold all over them. They're falling apart. They're rusted. Some of them are not safe, but the disability facilities are not. This disability swings and accessibility are not working at all. You've got to put concrete underneath the facility so people can get in wheelchairs. And so this is just like, if you look at the list, it's basic maintenance for South Tampa. So I appreciate everybody approving it, as he said, not for me, but for the, you know, for the thousands of moms who, many of them with kids with disabilities, who would love to be able to go to their own parks. Second, to the transit issue, I know Councilmember Hurtak has taken this off the table, but I really think we should put in 20,000 or 50,000 to Transit Now and set up we had a beta test of free service. We have a beta test going right now of paying for additional service. I'd like to see a beta test separate from the others, where Transit Now just promotes a route, one of them that's not already being funded. So we give them like 20,000 or 50,000 and just ask them to promote that route for a year. And I think that they will increase the ridership just because they promote it and they make it fun, which means that Councilmember Hurtak's going to have to go on the bus too. But I think with a small amount of money, we can increase traffic on the buses. The last thing is, I think we ought to just pass this as is and let the administration find the other 500,000 since they spent the rest of the 100 million already. Thank you.
Councilman Miranda, would you like a turn?
After the 100 million, you want to talk to me?
Well, you're the only one that hasn't gone yet before me. So if you would like to, just put your mic on.
Well, you know, District 6 is...
Put your mic on.
District 6 has also been neglected when you look at the rest of you guys. But we're coming around, we're doing some paving. It started there, and I was just on one day, the other day, I was driving around the district, and I saw part of a neighborhood almost completely done. And on game days in certain areas, you can't get in and out of your home for an hour before the game, because the traffic is coming in, and then you can't get out of your house for an hour and a half after the game. And that's another area we have. And when you see about accidents, I guarantee, and I'm going to ask for a report on accidents just around a certain time after the let out, to show how much accidents are really created in the neighborhood, because the traffic comes through neighborhood streets to get out to the streets that are secondary to get to the highway. So it is very, very dangerous to drive when you have those things going on. So the quality of life during those periods of time are a little diminished, but we try to make the best we can with what we have. And when you look at the other side, or the side around the areas where the malls used to be, because there's no mall there now, so I'm not even going to mention the name, I don't want to embarrass anybody, but the malls are gone. So we have things that are happening around that sooner or later something's going to happen there. The neighborhood is solid, great people live and work there, and they try to do the best they can for their families that are involved, and they thank God that they do. So when you look at it, we're no different than any part of the city. We have I think District 6 is the most diverse district in the city, because it has everything. And when you look at it, it's a wonderful place, because you have a mix of personalities, races, creed, money, everything, less and more, and so it gets along pretty well for what it is, and it's doing very well and prospering, I think. And just, you know, we're going to keep going what we're doing and get everything as perfect as we can.
Okay. Thank you very much. I will put a few things in. I agree. I don't have a problem with the South Tampa parks. The issue that when I read the specifics was the request was actually for 2.1 something million, with the extra going to trees, and we have a lot of money in the tree fund. Because of that, I would prefer putting that extra 300 into something that's not trees. There's
a new list that Tara worked out with Ted Fowler.
I haven't seen that list, so
that was just yesterday, so I don't know.
I know that's what I'm saying is I think we kind of need to figure that out, because right now we have to cut a $500,000 from this list. So that was my first pot. Didn't realize there was another list, or maybe it was sent to us and I haven't had a chance to look at it. But if I could still have my time, please. I had a quick question for Ms. Kopesky. If you could answer for me, and as she's answering, if you could hold my time, for the District 6 Park placeholder, what is that?
Right, so as I was meeting with the different offices, one, I want to remind everyone that Parks was, first of all, shout out to Mr. Fowler. He was very helpful and was asked to pull together from his perspective what he had visibility to correct, that could use some love in the park system. I have it.
Okay.
And so I just want to say, A, thank you, but two, also, of that list, approximately 1.3 million of his 3 was incorporated into the list that you are looking at on the PowerPoint. So I think it was a good partnership is where I'm going with that. But in terms of your specific question, I think not everyone was as ready to pull the trigger on the specificity of where they may see the greatest need in that particular district. And so by allocating a committed amount, it would allow more time to make a good decision on where that is best served. So in that particular case, outside of Henry Nola, there was a little bit more homework to be done.
So same question for miscellaneous small repairs, District 5. Is that park repairs?
Do you want me to answer, or do you?
So that came from just, looking at some of the parks, and you have either, a building that needs to be repainted, mulch, replacing grass, it's those kind of things, miscellaneous things.
Okay, and so, like I said, I just wanted some specificity on that, and then, okay, that was really my questions. I support the parks. I don't have any particular, since I'm citywide, I can just support parks wholeheartedly. The one thing that I really champion that I'm thrilled is in here is the summer youth program increase. That's something that the summer youth program increased from 48 to 70 because the community has asked for that for many years.
Yes.
So glad we can participate in doing that. So I will go ahead and, so those were my comments. Do we have a second round? Anybody else wish to speak about? Well, let's try to finish this section first before we go to social action arts. So it sounds like we still have District 6, District 5, and District 4 that we need to get specifics for, more updated specifics. District 7.
May I?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
They're the only one I haven't.
Yeah, so no, there are some District 7 requests in here. I'd like to see a little bit more. So a couple of things. I'll just say from experience with things that whenever we pass these, there is sometimes the black hole of the city budget that when you pass something, and if you don't check up on it, I just say this to all the district members, next year you go, hey, what happened to that, right? So you put $250,000, let's say, for District 5, and you got to make sure. And by the way, it's not because anybody in staff is trying to hide the ball or anything. Stuff just happens. Time goes by, people forget, whatever it may be. So just as a point of instruction, I think it's good to ask Parks and Recreation for specificity in terms of where this is needed. And I would be glad to stipulate to a certain amount. There's $2.5 million requested here, including whatever the amount was with the trees. If we want to go ahead and say that out of this $2 million goes to South Tampa, I'm good with that. Again, I'm fine. I got no problem with that. Again, we hear a lot from South Tampa, but again, anybody that goes to the parks out there, I see things, I hear things, and I'm fine to give some robust help to South Tampa in this. I just think that we need some slight modification for some other things, especially in North Tampa, the Fowler and Bush communities. I think that's pivotal.
Okay, so Ms. Kopesky has a list from Mr. Fowler,
Right.
And if we could switch to the wolf so we
that
could
would be
see
great.
it.
And this is the list I referred to a moment ago when I said that there were some items that were selected and put into the
Are those the
PowerPoint.
checks?
And those are my little checks, which are hardly visible. But yes, so just to I'll use District 5 as an example. So in this case, there were some compromises. There were 2 pools that were recommended to have decking improvements, and given we knew we had some constraints, we made a decision to, Councilwoman made a decision to select one. But these would be, to your point, Councilman Vera, where they brought forward what they thought were the things that were meaningful from an infrastructure standpoint and that they could get to fairly easily, so.
And can I just say, and then we also, I did speak with Mr. Fowler as well to get specifics on exactly what are the facility improvements, what are the electrical maintenance, and he was able to give us a breakdown and say, this is for the concession, like for Belmont Heights, it's for the concession stand, so that they can continue to use it and it doesn't fall under code, because once it falls out of code, then they're unable to use it for their games. For Jackson Heights, it's for the lights on the field. Right now, they either have little to no lights. You have the pool deck, for the Cyrus Green Pool, which is used for summer and programs, and then there's, kids from all over the neighborhood that go to the pool. So I did ask him for specifics on exactly what those improvements were, so just to.
And one thing I would like to just draw your attention to, Councilman Carlson, is I know today we talked a lot about Palomas, and just generally there's Gandy North, Gandy South. So I noticed on this District 4 section up here, you can see there is a boardwalk replacement, Gandy Park South here for $270, and then down here the improvements. So much of today was spent discussing the north side of Gandy, and so I just wanted to, draw your attention to that, because that would be something that, they wanted to highlight.
Councilman Carlson, are these on your list?
I think there were some selections made to meet the budget requirements of what the community wanted versus what, but I'll let you.
Yes, Councilman Carlson.
Where is this list reflected on the budget you just showed us?
So if items were taken from this list, so the offices have this, I think, I will tell you that I believe there was a lot of work going on already with the group in District 4 to look at the child interactive specific items. So it's not incorporated into my PowerPoint unless items were lifted from this list and put into it. So in this case, I am intentionally showing you your section because I know that in that particular area of Gandy, we had a large discussion today, but no, this particular
The things that are
suggestion-
checked, Councilman Carlson, are
Right,
in
but
the
he asked
list.
specifically about his. So in District 4, this is not in the 2.5.
But it's not 2.5, sorry, it's not 5.5 million plus 1.2.
No, I went ahead and just wanted to know for myself, what was the value of items from the park recommended list that was put into the PowerPoint presentation, and that is 1.2.
Okay, thank you. Just a couple more comments. I'm being told that in the South Tampa proposal, the trees are not included, but Mr. Fowler went through with us yesterday, the day before, the whole list, and he was able to tell us that some things that again, it's the request from the moms of South Tampa, they went through and created their own list of things because they went park by park. And he said, well, these things have more of a lifespan, even though it doesn't look great, it's still sturdy and we could keep it and save money. The next thing is we have a grant to cover something. So what he did is he just shuffled around. And so we could ask him to send a full list. He was very pragmatic about going about it. So we can look at that. The other thing I would say, I try to be supportive of projects throughout the city, but the folks just to let you know that you never hear a big request in South Tampa because the people in South Tampa know that they need to make investments in other places. But you look at the $100+ million in investments in downtown. If you count Water Street and all the art stuff, it's a couple $100 million. You look at Fair Oaks Park, including interest, which is like $100 million, or at the very least, 40 million or whatever. The West River Walk, which is including interest, another 80 million. Hannah Avenue, 220 million. South Tampa gets nothing like that, nothing. And so the folks in South Tampa, I think, are being very reasonable, saying we just need you to fix the swings that are there. We need you to replace the ones that are rusted. We need you to replace the ones that are falling apart. We need to put concrete instead of mulch so that kids with wheelchairs can get in. So they're not asking for all the other districts just about have gotten things worth tens or hundreds of millions of dollars. and the moms of South Tampa are saying, can you just give us enough to fix the basic maintenance on these things?
Yeah, I don't think you're hearing anyone saying they don't want that. So I agree
But just
with
so
you.
people listening don't
Yeah.
think, here's South Tampa
No.
is getting something big again, because South Tampa doesn't get anything, because we don't have CRAs.
We all understand that. So I think where we are on this, though, because I think Councilman Vieira made a very good point, that if we're not very specific, I would be uncomfortable approving this without having an exact list. So my request, if someone wants to make a motion, would for Ms. Kopesky to work with the individual people who made these requests and Mr. Fowler to come back with a true list of all the things, because I'm uncomfortable with the word placeholder.
Understood, and I think there's just a
personally.
handful, so that would be fairly straightforward to do, yeah.
Okay.
And can we make,
Just a second, Mr. Vieira, Councilman Vieira.
And if I may, because it is going to deal with South Tampa, may I hear from Councilman Carlson first?
Sure,
Go ahead, Adam, go ahead.
no, I can make the motion that you just mentioned. I was, one of my things was gonna ask what's next step. So, I think there was a lot of expectation that we would approve something today, but just bringing it back in a couple weeks for more clarification so we can approve
With the
it.
resolution, yes.
And what I would ask is, I would ask us to include in the motion, or I can make in the motion, that we would include a request to the administration to find the other 500,000, since they already spent 95% of the overage in this year. They can find another 500,000 to put in. The citizens of Tampa deserve to have these minimal things to make their lives better in their communities.
I think that's a great idea, but history has shown that that's not something that they're likely to do. So if we need to find another 500,000, I think we can also
Make that part of the.
try to do that. I think we should I think we should make those separate motions just on the, I mean.
But they find when they need
I
it.
know. They
when
find
they need
money
it,
when
they
they want
find
to.
money.
I don't disagree,
And
but,
so this is not us asking for this. This is what we're feeding back from our constituents.
I agree.
And so if the administration wants to look good for the community, it would be a good idea. So I'd make a motion. When do you want to bring this back?
We can, actually, I mean, here's what I would say. Given that I believe it's primarily District 5 and District 6 where we would be going back with Mr. Fowler to get some.
And 4. Again, we just want to make sure they're.
Yes, Councilman Vieira, the only reason I paused there is I heard two things. So we do have yours specifically broken out for play equipment at New Tampa Nature Park, Del Rio Pool, and Copeland Park. But you also then kind of shot from the hip that you may want to consider additional something, and that's the only place I was pausing.
So what I will offer, Councilman Vieira, tree trimming was probably mine, but knowing that.
Can we take it as a tree trust fund?
That's different, but I would say that I would support putting that $100,000, taking out of tree trimming and giving it to District 7.
Sure.
And let you all, I'm just gonna take tree trimming off of that and turn that into District 7 and let you work with the two of them to figure that out. Does that work for you?
And may I?
Yes.
If I may, so I'll support, my understanding of this motion is going to have it come back. I would say to come back soon for purposes of momentum and everything like that, but to work with the district council members on the needs in the district, to have it come back. And again, with a lot of these requests for South Tampa, really all of them, very, very supportive of them. Very, very supportive. I do want to see some more movement in here for not just District 7, but the Fowler and Bush communities. I put in some stuff there for New Tampa, but for the Fowler and Bush communities, again, they don't show up to Tampa City Council for many, many reasons. But man, their voice is loud and they're screaming by virtue of the hard work they do every day. So again, we can work in this in our individual offices. I'm fine with that.
And so we're gonna keep the amounts we have. Unfortunately, the next available date that we have space is March 26th.
You don't think we can put it on March 5th?
No, because we've added no more additional items may be added. We've made a very specific, because of, we have 5 commendations and a public hearing, so that day is going to be absolutely packed. So.
And what are we calling this?
We're.
The Kopesky Fund.
I wish. Yeah.
We are calling this the FY25 surplus.
Prioritization.
So you want me to make a motion? Or you
Sure, go right ahead.
So I move to ask Ms. Kopesky to bring back a more detailed list of the
Fiscal year.
fiscal year
25.
I'll second
surplus to discuss on March 26th. And
Bring back resolutions as well.
and to bring back resolutions for us to approve the budget at that time. And in the meantime, to have staff ask the district representative, or just to ask us for input on the specifics.
Do we have a second?
I did it.
Okay, so I hear a lot of things. My one recommendation would have Ms. Kopesky lead that charge as the in-between between staff and council members so that she can keep an eye on all of it. And then I saw Councilwoman Young's light first.
Yeah. So are we, is this for the entire list?
Yes.
Okay, and what we're wanting is to come back with specifics. So we wanted
Yes.
to say concession stand for, or
Correct.
lights for, that's what we
Correct.
want. A
Yes.
more detailed list.
And make question on the motion? Or-
Yes.
Yes, so are we approving this list of priorities? Because again, I'm in agreement.
Not the list that's on the screen. Can you take that
The
off?
other
Because
one.
that's, yeah.
And we're
that's
not
confusing.
approving the list, we're just asking her to come back.
Yeah, we're
Okay,
asking
good.
her to come
Because
back.
again, I support a couple of things. Everybody up here, like Chairwoman Hurtak said, I think everybody supports something robust going to South Tampa. I just want a little bit of movement in there, which I can work off base. So in other words, we're dealing with the 10 suggestions, not the 10 commandments. I can vote for that there.
Okay, Councilman Miranda.
Thank you very much. I just want to remind everyone that you have 4 districts, 4, 5, 6, and 7, which are the sums of the digits of the total population. So in essence, you have 4 council members, your district member and your members in District 1, 2, and 3. So if you're going to try something with your district council member, make sure you include it with districts 1, 2, and 3. It's better to get it working quicker than instead of 1 individual carrying the load, you got 4 individuals carrying the load.
Yes.
And
Yes, that's why I thought
Plus
Ms.
one.
Kopesky would be the good one to be the go-between.
I want to make sure that's on the table.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you for remembering us. I appreciate that.
I never
You-
forget none of
You
it.
have sat in that seat, you know. So we have a motion for staff to come back with a more specific, Ms. Kopesky to come back with a more specific list on March 26th.
And a resolute, yeah.
The resolution, how do we want to handle the resolution?
You
I'm
had
going
me put it in.
I'm going to have to look into that
Yeah,
because
well, I asked you to put it in, but then Mr. Shelby gave me a look.
I gave you a look because this is, I don't know, correct me, but has council ever done this before in years
No.
past? Okay, well, I
Well,
just,
yes, we did a resolution last year.
but who presented the resolution?
The
The
revenue and
administration
finance.
The
did.
administration did.
So,
So, but, and I have to just jive this with the charter that says, this is going into the FY '26 budget, is that correct?
no, this is, I mean, technically, yes, but it is the leftover from FY '25.
So it's amending the '26 budget,
It
is
is.
that right?
It
correct?
It is.
Well-
But we approved the budget as it was projected before. This is additional money. And that, in fact, the administration went ahead and spent some of the extra money without telling us. So can we just leave it as it is? And if we need to
My
change it-
suggestion is to leave it as it is, and if there's a concern, it'll be dealt with.
Okay.
So I would like to
Ms.
ask one thing for
Kopesky.
clarification. So just to make the exercise go as smooth as possible, we're up to about 400,000 over. We heard a couple things. We'd love to hope that they can cover that and just take, that amount
I'll make
as
it
our
up separate.
total. And then I also heard I might want to consider movement for district allocation from Councilman Vieira. So as we think about leaving this room, I'd like to know if we're going to try to remain in total at this 5.7. Whether we have to cut it is one thing, but at least that we aren't going north of 5.7.
Councilwoman Young, I saw your light first.
Just, my amounts are gonna stay the same.
That's why I'm opening up the conversation.
Councilman
No,
Miranda.
I have 3 items for later on. before
Oh,
we
okay.
finish.
Your light's on, so that's
Oh,
what I
I'm
was asking.
sorry.
Councilman Vieira.
Yes, ma'am. I'm okay with the total, whether it's the 5 million or 5.7 or whatever it is. I just want, like I said, I know we're not marrying ourselves to the percentages. That's why I'm supportive of this. We'll get substantially there, but yeah, I'm good.
That's why I gave District 7 my 100,000. Yes. Okay, for the trees, yes. Well, That you might have to argue for. Councilman Carlson.
Per your suggestion, I'm going to make a separate motion after this one to address the overage, so.
Okay, so I have a motion for Ms. Kopesky to work with council members and staff on making this list more specific. From Councilmember Carlson, I believe seconded by Councilman Miranda. So all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay.
Can I make
back
that?
to the, yes, let's make that motion first, but actually, do you want to, let's deal with social action arts because that is a little separate. Okay, fine, go ahead.
Just because we might.
Go right ahead.
Because this one is about doing the role of government, which is fixing things to government. Anyway, I'd like to make a motion to ask the chief of staff to work with Ms. Kopesky to find an additional $500,000 so that we can cover the budget as proposed, and to return on March 26th, adjacent to the other item, to report on whether and how they were able to find the extra $500,000.
Do I have a second so we can discuss this? Okay, I have a second from Councilman Maniscalco. My only request is that you include the CFO in that and not just chief of staff.
I think the chief of staff is the one who can look across the departments, and
so
he will work with the CFO, but he
Okay.
needs.
Mr. Shelby.
The $500,000 in the motion specifically for what? I'm sure they could find $500,000.
No, I said it was for the overage and
For the overage of?
in the list that we.
In this
Of the-
prioritization list
Of the
surplus.
prioritization list. Thank you very much.
Okay, so I have a motion from Councilmember Carlson. I have a second from Councilmember Maniscalco. Any more conversation on this topic? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, back to social action arts funding. Councilman Maniscalco wanted to speak on this first. This is the same thing. First round, 3 minutes each.
Okay, so what we're talking about here, going by your list, and I'm not making any changes because I know of budget constraints. The portico this year in the current budget got completely cut, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and so did TBAE and Speak Up Tampa Bay.
And the
Anything
Crisis
that shows
Center.
it here, and then the Crisis Center, TPD Victim Advocate. But in this upcoming, we are making a request of what's shown here, 75, 75, 24, and then 100 to the portico.
Correct.
Correct. So, you know, cutting a few of these organizations to zero is extremely harmful. I understand, but looking forward and what's upcoming, you know, the portico is going back up to 100, and then others received a haircut or a significant haircut. But I would rather than give them zero, you know, 60%, 50%, 75%, something than going all the way down to zero. Because each organization, looking at them and trying to learn what they do, you know, they contribute to this community in whatever way. It could be a $5,000 item or $100,000, but community stepping stones was mentioned earlier today. We look at this artwork in the back, but the service that they provide to the Sulphur Springs community. The Crisis Center, I don't even have to go into that, how many people they help. The portico, they were here recently, you know, they talk about the homeless and the houseless and affordable housing, and you know, they're right down the street. We know the Skills Center, what they do.
Can we get that back up on the screen so that the public can hear as Mr. Maniscalco is talking about these
You
amounts?
know, Rise Up for Peace, trying to combat gun violence. Men of Vision, I've seen that directly with that organization, how it empowers young men. You know, I mean, if you've been to any of their events, so everybody has their strengths. I don't want to cut anybody down to zero. I'm happy with what's proposed. I wish I could give everybody everything, but I think this is within reason. Councilmember Vieira mentioned the Penguin Project. I mean, that's, you know, there's so many special organizations here that are meaningful, because people ask, well, what do you get in return for social action and arts? But I mean, getting to know these one by one, so many of these organizations, it's like, this is the least we can do for them, because the return on investment is, you can't put an appraisal value on it, you know, or monetary value, because when you're shaping lives and Cornerstone kids, I mean, I know people in almost every one of these organizations, but they make Tampa a better place. So, that's it.
Councilman Vieira.
Thank you, Madam. Quick question before Ms. Kopesky. Veterans Helping Veterans, is that there? I know they got like 24,000.
Correct. So just to be clear, if the original amount was satisfactory, it
Okay.
does not appear on the list. Yep.
Just to make sure, I
Yep.
just thought about them. So a
Yep.
couple of things I wanted to highlight here, guys, which is very important. Number one, the portico. According to my recollection, okay, we were told at the budget hearing that that $100,000 was going to be satisfied in the budget. So when I saw that for the Portico Housing Solutions, which is the secular arm of the Portico, I was very distressed. That's too strong of a word, but you know what I'm saying. It's not a good thing. That's going to be housing that they were promised. It's going to go to lower income people and returning citizens near the Portico. That's got to be satisfied in full. It does morally. To do anything else, I think, is terrible. Couple of things that I'm requesting here, and again, by the way, council, other than the portico, I'm not asking for a full amount requested because you have to compromise, and I'm all about that. But I don't want to compromise too much on the backs of mentally disabled people, etc. Sorry, but not sorry. So the Penguin Project had previously gotten $75,000. They were cut down to $15,000. Why? Why? 49, it's a long story how I got to this number, $49,751. That allows them to get a matching county grant. Again, that's like a 40% cut or so. That's fine. Ybor City Museum, you know, an organization that's been ignored year after year after year, cut down from $150,000 to $45,750. I'll take a 40-50% cut. Let's give them $90,000. I'm fine with that. Portico Housing Solutions. Then two that have come, Gold Star Mothers, they're new, again, $4,500. I can explain that. But two other ones that came up afterwards, the Crisis Center of Tampa Bay, we had started a Victims of Crime program. Councilman Maniscalco mentioned the wonderful work that our friends at Rise Up for Peace do. This was zeroed out for victims advocates, $24,000 to help people who have suffered, who have been victims of battery, of God knows what. And then our friends at Stageworks are requesting money from us. They do amazing work. They do great. No, I'm saying that, in other words, if we want to put it in there. Yeah, and are they late to the game? Absolutely. But man, we ought to make room for them. I've been trying to work something out with them, the CRA, behind the scenes. For some reason, it hasn't come to fruition. I'd love to support them in the great work that they do. So that's what I'm looking at. Very small amount of money, but man, especially with the Penguin Project in Portico, it goes a long way to groups that have big heart. Thank you.
Okay, I will simply say that Cornerstone Kids, the $20,000 allows them to get a matching grant from the county. And the community stepping stones, while that pool is still closed, those were the two that Councilwoman Henderson championed, so I kept those up for her. Councilwoman Young.
No, I was echo what you were saying. I was going to say the same thing. And also, as someone that's worked in nonprofit, but nonprofits do, and sometimes we don't. I mean, we know these nonprofits, but sometimes we don't even know the kind of work or the pennies that some nonprofits have to rub together to make things work and to do programming. I've been in that position, and it's just, it is, especially you have some nonprofits that, you know, because we know in the county they've cut funding for nonprofits, and you have them, they're still trying to just make programming work, because what happens when you're in the building, you're thinking, if I don't have programming, then that means people aren't coming, or kids aren't coming, or kids are out there doing whatever, or the seniors are out there doing whatever. And you have to make that decision. Are we going to keep the doors open and hope that something comes in or not? And so I am a huge supporter of nonprofits and the work that they do in our communities. And if it's possible that we can find the funding to do these, these incremental, these small increases, I think it's worth it. They stand in the gap where the city and county or even schools sometimes can't. And so that would just be my thoughts.
Okay. Anyone else? Just a reminder that on the May 28th City Council workshop, we have, I made a motion to talk about the future of the Social Action and Arts Fund so that we don't have to be here again, that we know what we're funding, how we're doing it. So just wanted to remind everybody of that. So going forward, are we set? Are we good? Does anyone have anything they want to say?
This time to make a motion on some of the things I talked about in terms of getting council support for some of these?
I think we have the means to support the ones that are here. I don't know that we can.
Do we have the 500,000 overage for this one?
No, this is it.
part of, this
Like
is,
that's the $500,000 overage was
No,
already
but-
there.
no,
that-
to be clear, let's hold on. The 500 overage is including
Yes,
this.
everything. Mhm,
Everything.
yep.
So,
Okay,
so
yeah.
you could, I was anticipating that, again, barring any new additional people coming in, that the social action component would be motioned and approved so that they could move forward with their organizations, and that we would be working through the other pages.
So yeah, that's Councilman Miranda.
I'm just gonna say, being in the devil's corner by myself, be careful how you do things, because A, you don't know what the budget's gonna be, B, you don't know what the rising cost is gonna be, the cost of salaries, the cost of insurance. Your budget may not be what you think is gonna be in the coming years.
We aren't going to be talking about budget. We're going to be talking about the process.
Yeah, but the process of the budget is the money, and the money is, it may go down instead of going up. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Yeah, that is so true. So Councilman Carlson, I saw your light.
Yeah. Just a couple things real fast. Can we change the name of Portico to Portico Housing Solutions? Just to be clear. I've spoken up for TBAE in the past, and it's one of the directions of the future of the economy, and so it's really tied to economic development, and it should, if we were doing real economic development instead of 80s economic development, we would easily fund that. We're still doing the old kind of stuff. Don't forget that Councilmember Henderson had recommended that we put a 1-year limit on these, and I know she passed away, but I don't think there should be an expectation that the city is going to fund something on a regular basis, except that as we go to the to this discussion in May, I think to a lot of people this looks like a political list. We need to make sure that these are following the strategy of the city, and we can give our strategy recommendations to the administration, but really, like TBAE, NACP, those should go under economic development. Rise Up for Peace probably should go under TPD somehow. The skill center should be probably economic development. You can put these in different categories, and not to make them pay for it, but there needs to be alignment of strategy where the nonprofits are providing something the city can't provide, or provide it at a better cost. Portico Housing Solutions will go under housing, so that we don't end up in this situation. I really don't like getting hundreds of emails from people advocating for their nonprofits. The Stageworks, I've put a lot of my own money in them over the years. I love them. I would, Lab Theater is emailing us now. To me, it shouldn't be a free-for-all where we have to make decisions among our friends. We should be able to look at it objectively and figure out where the money was go. Also, on some of these, like Penguin Project and others, maybe they should go under Raquel. Maybe Raquel should have a budget to try to figure out how to. That's something maybe you should do before you leave, Councilmember Vieira's. Come up with a strategy of how Raquel's office is not only just responding to requests and helping people, but what's the strategy for helping people to live better lives and get better jobs and have internships and all that. Maybe, some of these nonprofits could be part of a larger strategy that you might be able to work out and document before you leave.
Thank you. That is the whole point of the May conversation. Okay, Councilman Maniscalco.
Councilman V, I don't know if you're going to add any organization to the list. We're at 485,000. Do you want to squeeze in like 15,000 for Stageworks?
So yes, I do actually, believe it or not, but I read this wrong. And may I, Madam Chair, speak?
Yes, Councilman
Thank
Vera.
you. Just answer the question. So I'm supportive of that. I read this wrong. I apologize. I was going to make motions. That's already been put in there. My apologies. So I'm glad to see that's in there. So no, I would certainly be supportive of $15,000 for Stageworks.
The reason I'm uncomfortable with this is because this was just a grassroots email campaign. It's not that I think that's a bad idea. It's just that what happens when there's a grassroots email campaign between now and March 26th for something else? I'm just throwing it out there and playing the devil's advocate. I tend to side with you in that I like round numbers, so I don't have a problem with that. I'm just saying that we need to, and that's the whole thing. That's why we didn't want to get too far in the weeds, and that's why we asked Ms. Kopesky to round up all of our options now. But again, I will leave it to you all. But that's my only hesitation, is that I'm afraid if we crack the door.
I'll crack the door and make it an easy 500. It's easy to remember 500 instead of 485.
Oh,
so
second, if I may.
Make a motion to add $15,000 to the list for stage works.
I'll second, and may I, Madam Chair?
Yes.
So for that, what I would say is, remember that scene in many Indiana Jones, the wall's going down, he goes out, his hat's out, he grabs the hat, this is the hat, this is it, that's it, we're done. Okay, we're at $500,000 at Tamahakavado, we're done. So that's why I'll support that. And this list is great. And Hager, thank you for your work in it. We appreciate you. And thank you, Council.
Okay, so we have a motion from Councilman Maniscalco to make it an even 500,000 by adding 15,000 for stage works. I have a second from second from Councilman Vieira. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. So, Ms. Kopesky, what is the future plan for this? What do you need from us to move this forward?
All right, so I think what I'd like to do is just reach out to the offices individually, make sure that whatever is not crystal clear in terms of the park-related asks.
Oh, I'm talking about the
you're
social action arts.
Okay, I thought we were taking it even larger than that. No, in terms of the social action, what I was just thinking was, I'll just need to connect StageWorks with the application process, and so I may need to just reach out to someone in terms of contact, and you're giving me Lewis, okay? And we'll get that application in, because that'll be part of the process. And other than that, I can be point on getting back to the administration in terms of basically this being the request that we want to allow them to move forward.
Can I get a motion for, to request that staff come back with a resolution moving this money at the beginning of March as part of the, just the,
social?
No, the, what part of the agenda am I talking about? I'm sorry, y'all. The, just the consent agenda. Can I get a motion? Yeah, he did make a motion, right? Oh, who? Councilman Vieira made a motion to ask staff to come back with a resolution approving the social action arts funding. The other stuff, we really are trying to get the social action arts money out the door. Right. That's the reason for the speed. Mm-hmm. I would ask for the 19th, but tomorrow's the deadline, so that's not going to work. So that's why I'm asking for that's why Councilman Vieira is asking for March 6th. I believe that's because today's the 6th. Yeah, no, 5th, I'm sorry, so March 5th.
March 5th.
Yeah, to come back March 5th. We have a second from Councilman Maniscalco. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? If there's any issues, I'm sure that Councilman Vieira's office will be happy to help.
May I add one?
Yes, Councilman Carlson.
On your item on May 28th, could I make a motion to add a sentence at the end of it that says, this is a discussion of strategy, not specific organizations to fund?
Sure. Yes, that's the intent, so absolutely.
Is there a second?
It's the May 26th workshop.
May 28th.
28th, I'm sorry.
So my motion is to add a sentence that at the end that says, this is a discussion of strategy, not specific funding of organizations.
Okay, do we have that?
It doesn't say that on there now.
But no, you're right. I'm just asking. Okay, excellent. So we have a motion from Councilman Carlson, a second from Councilwoman Young. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
The reason
Councilman
is, please,
Carlson. No, you're right.
Please tell everybody, don't email us about individual, because we don't need thousands of emails for all the nonprofit.
No, what we need is emails about strategy.
Yeah.
So yes, if you got an email about strategy, I'm already talking to Ms. Bluma about that. She has been very helpful. So, okay, are we done? Yeah. Wow, I'm very proud of us. That was a hard discussion. Yes, that was already approved. So we are on to New business. I'll start with Councilman Miranda. Okay.
Make a motion to have the Budget Office staff appear on May 7th, 2026, regular council session to be recognized for receiving the Government Finance Officers Association Distinguished Budget Presentation Award with special recognition given to the strategic goals and strategic for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2025.
So that's in commendations and presentations?
Combination, yes.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilman Miranda, a second by Councilman Maniscalco. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Second one is I would like to make a motion to have the accounting office staff appear on April the 2nd, 2026, regular council session to be recognized for receiving the Government Finance Officers Association Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting for the fiscal year ending in September 30th, 2024.
In commendations and presentations?
Yes.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilman Miranda, second from Councilman Maniscalco. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
And thirdly, if I may, there's been a lot of disruption, especially in some of my district, District 6, where they get a permit and they're entitled to that. And then you have 15, 20,000 people come, the police are there, and they're urinating and doing everything else around the neighborhood, creating staff, or smoking, whatever they want to smoke, I guess. I'm not sure about the smoking part, but a lot of drinking, a lot of stuff. So I'd like staff to examine and bring forward in the July 2026 cycle, language for better regulatory temporary special events with and without alcohol on residential property by limiting properties that do not have a non-residential use for no more than 100 persons.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilman Miranda, a second from Councilman Maniscalco. I will tell you, Councilman Miranda, that my office is looking at that too. And so the good news is that Ms. Sharf told me that she found out that they have already requested a permit for next year, and that was denied, correct?
Yeah, denied. That was denied.
So ideally, yes, but how do we do that going forward? So thank you for handling that, because that email was atrocious.
It was unbelievable.
Unreal, unreal. Okay, so I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
And move to receive and file that now.
Yeah, and move to receive the document for me recusing myself on one of the items that we passed today.
Last week. Okay, so I have a motion from Councilman Miranda and a second from Councilman Maniscalco to accept that document. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Councilman Maniscalco.
So I made this motion the other day, but since the CRA meeting was canceled, I wasn't able to clarify it, but I'd like to put on the agenda for Thursday coming up at the CRA, but before the CRA, I'm going to present a commendation to the NAACP for their anniversary. And the reason why it has to be this date is a couple of things. The founding of the national organization is on that date. Number one, I think it's the 12th.
Second.
1909. And second, I believe some folks might be coming from the state level, higher NAACP members, office holders. So they might be showing up too. So I just want to make sure that we put that on the agenda, because it doesn't show on the calendar, and we had that CRA cancellation, so there's no confusion.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilman Maniscalco, second from Councilman Miranda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Good. So my office will prepare that commendation. So last week, last week Councilmember Hurtak made a motion to tentatively continue the council salary discussion to the August 2026 workshop. Now that we have our 2026 calendar approved, I see that there is no workshop in August. So I move to amend that motion by Councilmember Hurtak to schedule the salary discussion, file number CM 24-4658, to the September 24th, 2026 workshop.
Thank you,
Second.
Mr. Maniscalco, for doing that for me. Councilman Maniscalco's motion, second by Councilman Miranda. One of the other reasons we're doing that is we are getting the answers, or we're getting the recommendations by the Charter Review Commission the week before. So if it's settled with the charter, that'll be settled with the charter. If they don't take it up, then we'll take it up. So that's kind of the fail-safe. Okay, so I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
And
Okay.
then the last motion is, I'd like to make a motion to present a commendation to Tampa Bay Boulevard Elementary School, right there on McDonald, Tampa Bay, for their centennial celebration. I will present the commendation off-site in August, because an exact date has yet to be determined. So.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilman Maniscalco. I have a second from Councilman Miranda. I kind of feel you need your pipe for this one. CCTV, we need you to zero in. There we go. Okay. So, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So I remarked the last time that Councilmember Maniscalco wore that sweater, said he needed a pipe, so he
It is not lit and there is
it.
nothing in it. It is empty.
Okay, is that it?
That's it, thank you.
Excellent. Councilwoman Young.
Okay, alrighty, so I want to start off by we had a very successful community town hall on safety in Ybor. It was very well attended. Thank you to staff that was present. We had our CRA, mobility, TPD, and code enforcement. Really great conversation. Councilwoman Hurtek attended as well, and it was really great. And so I just wanted to just thank all of staff that came out and made sure it was possible. It was great, and I'm looking forward to having more of them and continuing that conversation. I actually had some community members that lived in other areas that came up to me and asked, can we have one of these in our community as well? And they just appreciated that we were able to actually have an open conversation. And it went, I feel it went really well, and it was really positive, and that was what I wanted it to be, and so I'm very happy about that. Also, happy Black History Month. In honor of Black History Month, I don't know if you all were able to attend, but last Thursday, East Tampa unveiled a new community mural. We were actually in council that day, so we could not attend, at the Chloe Coney Urban Enterprise Center on East Hillsboro Avenue, and the mural theme, it's actually up on the screen now, is Be All You Can Be, and it was honoring 6 remarkable women who significantly impacted East Tampa. And so we have Ms. Chloe Coney, who is the founder of the CDC, or Corporation to Develop Communities of Tampa, Dr. Frankie A. Berry, who was a well-respected Middleton High School educator, Councilwoman Gwen Miller, the first African-American female elected to Tampa City Council, Patricia Pierce Coleman, the City of Tampa's first African-American female police officer, Commissioner Sylvia Rodriguez Kimball, who's the first African-American woman elected to a major office as a Hillsborough County Commissioner, and Teresa Manuel, Tampa's first Olympian and first African-American woman from Florida to compete in the Olympic Games. So amazing, amazing mural. And the artist and designer, her name is Michelle Sawyer. She collaborated with students from the Pace Center for Girls, Community Foundation of Tampa Bay, the Gasparilla Festival of Arts, and the CDC of Tampa, and various community supporters to put this mural together. So I just wanted to highlight that. It is beautiful. If you're, I've driven by it a few times, and I think it's so important to have, and a fantastic job. There are some Black History events that are happening. We have the annual Black History Celebration is tomorrow, which is honoring our veterans, and that is hosted by the City of Tampa Black History Committee. It is open to the public. If you have not seen one of those flyers around, then you were probably walking with your eyes closed, because I know they've been around everywhere. So I'm sure it's going to be a fantastic celebration tomorrow, and I'm really looking forward to that. And the City of Tampa Community Engagement is hosting the Black Love Series every Sunday at the Tampa Theater at 3 p.m. I love the Tampa Theater. It is just, it's absolutely beautiful. So I'm really looking forward to going to this with me and my husband. So I just wanted to highlight this. Also, I want to thank the council members as with our last motion of passing the funding for the Social Action and Arts Fund, because I know that was one of Gwen Henderson's priorities before she passed, was to make sure that those organizations were fully funded. And so we were able to do that today, so thank you. And I am an avid tea drinker. I know you all see me up here a lot of times with a lot of coffee, but I do love tea. I love yogi teas, and if you know, they have those little quotes on the back of them. And the one that had today was that compassion is your strength. But I also wanted to add in there the empathy. Compassion and empathy is extremely important, especially now in this day and time. So I just want us to remember that we are up here as I say I'm a public servant. I don't like to call myself a politician, but compassion and empathy is extremely important. So as we go out into the world this weekend and the rest, remember compassion and empathy.
You are a breath of fresh air. Thank you. We need good. Thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you, Guido.
And Councilman Vieira.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of things. Quick motions. I motion for a written staff report on establishing a signalized light at Highwoods Preserve Parkway and New Tampa Boulevard to return on March 26th. Again, a written staff report.
I have a motion from Councilman Vieira, second from Councilman Maniscalco. All those in favor? Aye.
Yep.
Okay.
Where my son works, which is funny. Not that I had anything to do with it, by the way. I heard that at a town hall. Second, y'all got the letters of support from a number of good people on an honorary street renaming in Ybor City for the late Officer Morris Lopez. And if y'all have any questions or what have you on it, please let me know now. But my motion is for pursuant to the satisfied procedure under our ordinance or whatever it was we passed on street renamings. I motion for honorary street renaming in Ybor City for the late Officer Morris Lopez to be brought for a presentation recommendation by staff on March 26th under staff reports. I don't know, do we have enough space on there?
Yes, we do.
Okay, good. So if I may, that's my motion.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilman Vieira, second from Councilman Maniscalco. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you, council. And then well, you know what, before I do my last motion, I mentioned this, and I got my aide to print it out, that on February 13th of 2026, there is the Michael Phillips Foundation inaugural luncheon.
Do you want us to put it up?
So, yeah, sure, Councilman. Thank you, sir. So just that anybody, Councilman Carlson's going to go put it on the Zoom or the Wolf, whatever that is. And so anybody, just please come to this. It's the first annual one of that, and it's named after Mike Phillips, done by Karen Clay, who's a wonderful individual. So just for that. So thank you, sir.
Great.
Thank you very much. And then lastly, if I may, and so I had done a motion on this before, which got a lot of discussion. This is the motion that I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, folks are comfortable with. So motion to add to the February 26, 2026 workshop a discussion about the potential inclusion of a text amendment in the January 2026 amendment cycle for revision to the Land Development Code to consider allowing a portion of the permitted electronic message sign dwell time to be activated not to exceed 15 seconds per message cycle. And I'll give you all the language if it passes. Limited to properties with principal use of an arena, stadium, or civic event venue. Again, this is what folks wanted, or unless if I'm wrong, council, by the way, the compromise. So that's my motion.
And the date again, I'm sorry? The date?
February 26th, yes, sir.
The workshop,
Yeah,
thank
it's the
you.
workshop. I have a motion from Councilman Vieira, a second from Councilman Maniscalco, and that is the conversation in February workshop. Okay, so all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, yeah. So do you want to read that vote?
Motion passes with Carlson voting no.
Yeah, me. Yeah, I'm voting no on that. No. Yeah.
Want me to repeat it? Or? Okay, so it's
Okay.
4-2, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and Clendenin absent.
Motion passes with Carlson and Hertag voting no and Clinton absent.
Okay. Okay, Councilman Carlson. Okay, I'm going to hand this over because I've got two. On August 7th, 2025, TPD presented an in-person staff report on the Howard Avenue Evidence and Control Capital Projects. 6 months have passed since that update, and the construction bidding and selection process is now complete. I would like this council to have an opportunity to hear another in-person staff report in advance of a resolution coming to us for approval to move forward. What that means is I would like staff to come and present to us 2 weeks before they bring us a resolution. If they bring us a resolution, we're not going to hear it. That's what this motion says.
That's fine.
Until we've heard an update on it.
We have a motion from Councilmember Hertag, second from Councilmember Carlson. Any discussion? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you. I motion that TPD and contracted, oh, I'm sorry, this is all, whoops, this was one motion, sorry. And so I motion that TPD and contract administration provide an in-person updated project status review on March 5th, 2026. In advance of that meeting, council should direct specific questions related to this project to our budget analyst, who will work with my office and staff to incorporate all desired information into the March staff report. Sorry about that.
Is that a new motion?
No,
or-
it's all part of that. It's all
Okay.
part of one motion. So I'll rescind my first motion.
But the first motion was set for what day?
Okay, there was no first
Then
date.
it's- I think it's
I
a s-
read it wrong.
I see.
So I'm pulling that motion.
So.
Motion to
the Previous
rescind?
motion so rescind the previous motion?
Yeah, all that was a paragraph, and I just read it wrong. All of this goes together.
Do you need her to rescind it?
Do I need to
or is
rescind
that-
it? Are you
gonna
She
hand
has
it?
She has it typed out.
Yeah, I have it typed out.
Okay.
Okay, so then the motion is for TPD and contract admin to provide an in-person updated project status review on March 5th, 2026. In advance of the meeting, council should direct specific questions related to the Howard Avenue Evidence and Control Capital Project to our budget analyst who will work with my office and staff to incorporate all desired information into the March staff report. After that, a resolution can come forward.
Okay, so, and rescinding the previous motion that you just made.
He said I don't need
You
to.
don't need to? Okay, we have a motion, we have a second? Second from Councilmember Carlson, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Anything else, ma'am?
Nope.
Motion to
that'll
receive
do.
and file.
I have a motion to receive and file from Councilman Maniscalco and a second from Councilman Miranda. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions from the board? You have a does anybody else in the audience want to speak for or against?